Hey yo, hey yo, hey yo. I hope I can be heard. I'm pretty sure I can. I think it's gonna be fun. We're gonna have ourselves a good old time today. How's it going? What's going on, folks? How is it? How are we? How are we feeling? I hope we're feeling all right. As far as I know, everything is just fine and dandy. We have ourselves probably a more interesting thing today. An interesting person. They were at a cool event I was at some time ago. They were casting and I believe also running part of pools, and we're going to get into that eventually. But I think it's time for us, to chill, hang out. What's new, what's different. Hopefully, it's something cool. It's definitely going to be some fun times. At least I think so. I feel like probably one thing we're going to end up doing today is we're going to learn about ourselves. We're going to learn about the folks who are going to be here. Chat is not disabled. Just hit refresh. See? Let me. This is that one. No, it's this one. There you go. See, I don't know why chat was disabled. That was weird earlier. It said that it was supposed to be for children, YouTube for kids. I'm like, this is not going to be YouTube for kids. That's weird. I think today is going to be real fun. Like I said, we have a really cool person who's going to be a part of this. And I think it's about time we get them in. Let me just reach out to them. Let's see if they are ready to go. All right. We're going to get ourselves into a fun little phone call here. Let's see. Let's see how this goes. Hello there. Can I be heard? Can I be seen by you? Or is everything on my end messed up? All right. Let me make sure I have everything all situated on my end. Because so far, I can't hear you, unfortunately. Oh, I think things are happening.
It was my end. It was my end.
Apologies. Oh, okay. That's totally fine.
Was on it. Sincerely apologize.
Totally fine. Do not worry. Let me set up the scene. We're here. Let me turn off something real quick. And we should be fine and good to go. We're all fine and dandy. I think we're exactly where we want to be. How's it going?
Pretty good. Just tired at work early today and got everything done, but For the most part, doing okay. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Been having some soul crushing work related stuff happening too, so I fully understand.
Yeah, ain't it all the joys of working in the
In a
in the
capitalist
current
society.
in yeah, I didn't know if we are allowed to go there right away.
Yeah,
Yeah,
don't worry about
isn't it great, the
it.
soul crushing weight of capitalism bearing down on you every day
Yes.
as I decide between whether or not I'm allowed to, splurge on myself and buy myself like a bag of chips, or if I have to worry about paying rent this month.
All
Oh,
right.
what joys we have.
There was a thing I saw a long time ago that said, uh, financially irresponsible things our grandparents did. Let's buy a third car and take a vacation throughout Europe. Financially irresponsible things that will cripple us today. Do I buy non-expired groceries this week?
Yeah, do I is the everlasting question of you know what? I will go out with my friends once because I haven't gone out with them in the past 3 months. I deserve this. And then you look at your statement the next day and you're like, oh,
No, well,
you
apparently
deserved it.
the bank account didn't said you didn't deserve it after all.
Exactly.
Oh my god! Real quick, we have ourselves a fun little time, and I wanted to make sure you know this. I inherited something bad from my mom,
Mm,
so English is her second language. I would
mhm.
always have to correct her on how the English language works because she still thinks in Spanish, even though she speaks
Sure.
in English.
Sure.
Uh, the Spanish language and a lot of like Latin languages and Romance languages are gendered, but she sometimes
Mhm.
forgets which one goes which, and I accidentally do that. So forgive me if I end up saying if I don't say they or she,
Oh,
because
that's
my brain is so spent on trying to correct my mom. I inherited her just bad grammar.
fine. It's totally fine.
So I just want to put that out there. So I just want to put that out there. Uh, real quick, hi everybody. We are here. We are live. We are live on YouTube. This is Straight Edge Drop Replays, and please introduce yourselves to anyone who's going to be watching this or a future version of the VOD.
Hi, my name is Dr. No, Guinevere Strummer. I go by she, they, and I am a longtime FGC and Melee content creator, broadcaster, commentator, tournament organizer, pretty much, everything I can do to put on events all across Southern California, I'm gonna do it, so.
And I think the very first time I was aware of your existence was actually at Wave Dash. Was
Mm,
actually at
Wave
Wave
Dash
Dash. The
2023 or 2022?
2023.
Okay, got
Yes.
it.
Yes. I saw you were there. You're playing some sets, and then I see you disappear off, and I see you ended up casting with Oats at one point. I thought that was pretty
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, no, it was a great time. Funny story, I actually wasn't in or doubles was supposed to be me and Oats made, bless their heart, made the mistake of trying to get anywhere in California by leaving at noon and expecting to get there within an hour and a half. This is not how California works. I believe Oats was coming from San Diego
Yep.
to Orange County and didn't quite make it in time. So I had to pull spots aside and be like, hey, I know you're entered into doubles. Do you want to go commentate with me? Because we don't really have anybody else. And then thankfully he was willing to drop out and join to be on the broadcast. So thank you to Spots for that, and to his teammate as well, who had to play with a level 9 CPU. But yeah, commentating with Oats was super great. Commentating with Spots is always super fun. That was actually my first time commentating with Spots. I had a great time.
Ooh, yeah. It was funny. For a short period of time, I've known Oats probably about since like December-ish, or maybe even
Mm,
November-ish of last year. And Wave Dash was the first time we met in person.
mm.
And I was
Fair
like, "Oh
enough,
my
fair enough.
god, you're here!" And they ended up showing up in full drag because, and it's funny because he had said once they had said once, um, Hey, so is this the future of oats? And like one of our last conversations here is like this the future of oats? You know, just writing pamphlets and tournament
Signs
the
and
zines and all that jazz, and doing drag at Smash tournaments. And they're like, yes, that'd be wonderful. And I'm like, well, we got the drag part. Now we just need like tournament pamphlets for every tournament that happens out here in SoCal.
exactly. I big shout outs to Oats. I am actually Oats inspired me. I'm also going to be running a charity tournament on my birthday because I believe that's what he
Ooh.
did for their last birthday. And I was like, what a like super cool idea. And like what like a like and then my birthday this year falls on a Tuesday, which is when my tournament series is. I run a weekly on
Mm.
Tuesdays. And so I was like, oh, well, like what better excuse to like throw a birthday tournament than to just be like, hey, for my birthday, let's do a bigger event. So I'm putting wheels in motion to getting that to be a little bit of a bigger thing. But yeah, no,
Ooh.
I love Oats. I think Oats is like goes way, way, way back in the scene and has always been like dependable, but then it's also like always I feel like is one of the few people who is always looking for something new to kind of like
Mm-hmm.
pull an angle with. Which
Certainly.
is hard to do in a game this old. We've been around for a minute. So,
Yeah.
to still be looking for new things to be oh, like, what if we change it up and what if we make it this theme? What if we do that? What if we do
Hmm.
this? Like that kind of stuff goes a long way in the scene.
I think at one point I had said um, to mash it up with something crazy that'd be really fun. There was one. Uh, did you ever go to Self Help Graphics?
No, no, I have not.
So Self Help Graphics, if you weren't aware, was this like art studio that was based out of East LA, and they would throw big multi-day events in their parking lot. And then there was this local like music production company called Evercore Media that did a lot of the Latin ska core music and just like a
Mm,
lot of the music local to East LA. Um, one year they had something called Veteranos del Underground, and they had music on a main stage, and they had a separate side stage that had lucha. So mass wrestlers were were flying all over the place, and I'm like, you know what? I think we need some lucha at a Smash tournament. That'd be hilarious. That'd be awesome. We'd have someone dressed up like Fox and Snake, and it'd be even better than whatever would have happened during grand finals.
that would be the greatest top 8 walk-on of all time if you just you just hand out to the crowd. It's kinda CEO-esque,
Yeah,
right? But
exactly.
like let's get a little bit of extra culture in here because
There you
Lord knows
go.
we're not going to Fullerton anymore, or excuse me, Florida anymore.
No, yeah, no, forget that noise. I wouldn't want to go there anyway.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
So I kind of want to start off at the best place to start off is always at the beginning. That's right.
Mm.
That's usually a good place to go. Unless you're really good at storytelling, starting at the beginning is the best place to start. So I kind of want to know, like, is your start and beginning FGC? Is it Smash? Where does it come from? And like, how did you kind of get into whichever scene you started with? And like, who introduced you to that? Like, what's that story?
Yeah, so it started in like 8th grade middle school to freshman year of high school. I started just watching Street Fighter tournaments.
Mm,
I just was like, I was like, oh, like like I know Street Fighter, and I was just watching like I would I would no joke, I was watching just like arcade footage from like Japanese arcades that were just streaming like random Street Fighter tournaments. And I forget exactly who told me to start, but a friend of mine was like, "Oh yeah, like I watched some of these tournaments, they're kind of cool." And I was like, "Oh okay, yeah, like I'll check it out." And so I just started casually watching Street Fighter here and there. And then that same friend, Jonah, got me into Marvel when Marvel 3 came out. And then so I started playing Marvel a little bit here on the side. And it was always one of the things that I was like, oh, it's like kind of fun to like, like try to get a little better and like try to get the leg up on your friends. But like I at the time I didn't know there was like any tournaments around here, right? Like I
mm,
had no idea what was going on. I knew like next to nothing. Um then in my sophomore to junior year of high school, I made some friends at school that all played Melee. Shout out to Cowboy, one of the like he helps with TOing all the time. He's like a day one, he was the person who said like, "Oh hey, I'm gonna throw like a house tourney if you want to come." Like, and I was like, I'd never competed in Melee. I'd like played it before, but I never competed. And he was like, "Yeah, you want to come over? Like, just like come enter." I was like, "Yeah." I go,
Hmm.
and I remember I was playing somebody and it was like really, really close. Like I was playing against him and I was like, it was really close and I barely won. And then I went to him afterwards because I didn't know who it was. And I was like, it's like, oh hey, like I beat this person. Like I was like, are they any good? Like I want to see where I'm at. And he goes, nah, not really. And that was when I was like, oh, there's levels.
Yeah.
I understand. I proceeded to get hosed the rest of the tournament. Um, and it was like at that moment where I was like, "Oh, hold on, I get it. Like, I get why we're doing this."
Yeah.
"Oh, this shit's cool." So, I'm sorry, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, we're
I
fine.
wasn't
We're fine. We're
okay,
fine
cool.
now. We're fine now. We've been in.
Uh,
This thing has been going live for over 20 minutes. You're okay.
okay, perfect. I wasn't. I like
We're
realized I was
fine.
like,
We're fine. We're fine.
ooh. But yeah, no, I was so that was like what got me like into like competing a little bit more. Like I was like, oh no, hold on. I want to be like sick at all these games that I touched. So like I, competed a little bit in Street Fighter 4. I competed a little bit, competed a bit more in Melee until like I was like winning the house. Like I think one of the like the last tourneys that I was just like, I'm like, this is one I'm super gonna try was like one of his house tourneys that I actually ended up winning. And I was like that was like the like yeah, like that was the goal I wanted to achieve.
That's
That
the
was like my
moment right
short-term
there.
goal. Yeah. Started going to a couple Marvel tournaments here and there. I used to go to Wednesday night fights all the
Okay.
time. And then senior year of high school, we had like a big senior project that we had to do, and you could do it on anything. And I decided to do it on esports. So I started volunteering with Wednesday night fights. I got into the organizing scene. I was running CS:GO events, Wednesday night fights, that kind of stuff. And eventually, I started talking to some of the people there, and they were like, oh, like like you're kind of funny. Like, would you ever want to like jump on the broadcast or everything? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if that's necessarily me. Like, I'd love to do something like that, but I don't know if I can. Um, and uh, my girlfriend at the time, was talking to me, and I was mentioning that I was like, it's like, like it's like a dream. It's like it's like a dream to do this kind of a thing, but I don't know if I ever could, right? Like, I'm probably just gonna go to school, or just go get a business degree or something like that, and
Mm.
just like not worry about it. And she said, a lot of times when you have a backup plan and you work on it, it just ends up becoming your primary plan. So, worth thinking about. And that stuck with me. That like got me really hard. And I decided that I was gonna chase esports, commentary, all this kind of stuff full time. I I kind of got, different life things happened that I wasn't even able to go to school anyway. So I was
Ooh.
like, well, I might as well just, dedicate as much as I can. And now I run one of the best, probably the premier weekly in Southern California and amongst the top premier monthlies, if not the monthly for Guilty Gear Strive and Street Fighter 6. I still love commentating Melee. I've, Wave Dash 2022 is my first major. I do regionals here and there. I got invited to my first regional for FGC commentary earlier this year in Slashback.
Ooh.
And it's one of those things where it's like every little piece of the, every little piece of the puzzle, every time, like I make a little bit of an extra stride, I feel like I'm doing something right. And, you know, putting on airs for tournaments, all that kind of a stuff, just like seeing the community come together for fighting games, Melee. I consider Melee part of the FGC at this point,
Yep.
just for simplicity's sake. But like there's nothing more gratifying than being able to give back to the scene that like, gave me so much drive.
And it's funny that you mentioned the that monthly. I saw that you had posted the amount of talent that made like top 96 at Evo through either Guilty Gear or through Street Fighter, and it was a real big list of SoCal talent that actually made it really high up there for that. So that's your project, that's your baby right there, and that's the that's them coming out there. That's pretty
Yeah,
cool to
no,
see.
it was awesome. I think we had something like 20 of our players, maybe a little more from SoCal that like have attended like my tournaments or like regularly attend tournaments or whatever. Um like we had like 20 something people in the top like 5% of Evo, which like Street Fighter was 7,000
Yeah.
people. Guilty Gear was what, like like almost close to 3,000, something like
Hmm.
that. Like, and it it is like such a cool feeling because like I knew these people when this was their very first tournament, when they had just like Alermy is like a longtime homie. He came to his first tournament and he always rags on me. He's like, you threw me on stream my first tourney match ever. And I was like, but you came back stronger. You don't understand. I warned you. And all of that kind of stuff, like I live for that stuff. And then now like what? Like got like top I think it was like 156 or something like that, which is top 5% of the player
Yeah.
base that attended Evo. Like
Yeah.
you are in that top 5% of players of this game. Like and
That's
there's
pretty
so
fun.
many people like there's so many of those people that just like come. There's so many like top level players. I am like super super gracious for SoCal cuz like Nubenheimer won Arc Riva
Hmm.
World Tour. Like that is like the invitational to end all invitationals, right? Like
Hmm.
invites from all over the region. He won. He was like at that time, like that
Hmm.
is the way you're like, yes, you are the best Guilty Gear Strive player of all time. And then I just messaged him one day and I was like, hey, you want to come to it like our monthly? We got like a little prize pot. It'll be fun. And he goes like, all right, like yeah, cool, cool. Can somebody give me a ride? And I'm like, yeah, I got you. Don't worry about it. Like,
That's fun. That's hilarious. That's awesome. Dang. So one thing you did mention, and you did commentary and TOing, and like, how long were you into it before, like, being a player was, well, I guess I could really want to say, like, was being a player like your end goal at one point, or did you kind of like gravitate towards like the production and behind the camera and all that stuff, like as time went on?
I don't think I ever took myself super seriously as a player. If you ask anyone that I play Melee with now, it's I always say the same thing. Like I've stopped trying to be good at this game. I kind of just do the things that I think are fun. If I get to style, if I get to hit a cool clip, like that's enough for me.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever really like I cared about getting good within the context of my friend group and like
Hmm.
my homies, like I wanted to be better and if there was somebody better than me, I wanted to play with them a lot cuz I'm like, "Oh no, hold on, like I can learn something." Like the learning part excites me. But I definitely gravitated towards like commentary, production, TOing, that kind of a thing really early on. It was it's one of those things I think I'm very blessed to be fairly well spoken. And I think overall, like when I was just like I was like, "Oh yeah," like I remember I think it was one of the big houses. I
Mm.
was listening to Phil and Homemade Waffles commentating and I was just like I remember I was like getting the feeling. I'm like, "Dude, I feel like I'm sitting on the couch with my friends watching a tournament." Like I was
Yeah.
like I feel like I'm just like we're all just like, shooting the shit, we're watching a tournament, we're having a great time. Like that's what it felt like. And I remember like I was like, like I'd love to give somebody else that feeling. Like I'd love to be a part of like making hype moments happen and, like bringing production to people. And then, just kind of like naturally, like I was like, well, I don't, if I don't want to be a top player and I still want to do everything in my power to dedicate and be a part of this scene for as
Hmm.
long as possible, it makes sense to do commentary and it makes sense to do all this stuff. And, you know, it's it's something I wouldn't trade for the world. I'm incredibly lucky to have what people say they're fans of my work,
Yeah.
and like I'm just always looking for bigger and better opportunities, trying to show the world and everything.
Well, do you remember the first like tournament where like you either TO'd, ran a pool or anything like that? Or maybe even like also like what was like what was your first time on commentary like and what was it for?
The first time I can't remember the first tournament I ran because it was a good while ago now. Um, if Cowboy's watching, Cowboy probably knows. He was probably there. But I remember my first time commentating was funny story. I bring this up on broadcast a lot because the story always makes me laugh. But it was a training mode Tuesday in Santa Ana,
Hmm.
back when Santa Ana esports arena was a thing. And shout out to Salam and Iggy for allowing me to jump on the mic. And I just, like I was like, hey, like, is it open mic commentary? And they're like, yeah, you want to come by? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Drove out. I'm sure it was awful, because it was my first time and I was nervous and all sorts of stuff. But I will never forget. It was like one of my, if it wasn't my first tournament, it was like my second, and I was there. Um, and I was just like, I was having like a super good time. And then Casper, I think Casper got knocked into losers by Kadoran and then
Mm.
lost to Curve when Curve was still playing Luigi. And then like spiked his controller right behind me. Like I heard it, like I watched him like turn and I was like, like Casper's like bummed. I mean, I'll be honest, yeah, that was a heartbreaker. And you fought like two really, really strong floaties back to back. And I wish I still had the clip. There's like the moment where I'm just talking about like I was like, oh shit, it's Marth Luigi next, and then all of a sudden you can just hear like the
The
crack of a
crack.
controller, the buttons skittering across the floor, and
No.
I was like, oh god, like, and that was like one of my first times. But more to the point of the commentary, like first time commentating, I just remember I just had like an absolute blast, and I remember the first time somebody like was just like, he's like, oh yeah, like I actually really like your commentary. Like, I don't know if anyone's ever told you this. Like, you kind of remind me, like, you kind of got like a similar vibe as like HMW a little bit. And like, I don't know if that was actually founded at all, but it was one of those things that like that was the commentator that I super looked up to. So I was
Mm.
like, like instantly, like I
Me?
was, yeah, I was so touched. I was so like just through the roof excited. And like, was it the most founded comment? Probably not, but, like, at the same time, for, like, me and my little heart at the time, oh, it just it meant the world to me. So, like, stuff like that, like, and, you know, I still get messages, from some people, just, like, mention it. Like, anytime I just get, like, a message that's just like, "Hey, loved your commentary," something like that. Like, it just, like, I don't know. It hits me right in the chest. It stays with me for 3 months. Like, I can still just, like, I'm like, "Ugh," like, "Ugh."
That's awesome. So like how far back is this really journey like how far back does it go? Because, for some people, they come in swinging and like next thing you know, like they've started casting regionals within like their first 2 years of like kind of being heavily active in the scene. Or like if you know like Jerry's story,
Mhm.
he like was at and ran more tournaments um in his first like year or two before he actually ever competed. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I talked to Jerry a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's funny. Side note, I bring this up all the time, but I knew him in high school. I was a senior when he was a freshman, and he was like a little scene kid.
I I do okay, and sidebar, it is so funny to me because every time I talk to him every now and again, or if I, like, mention, like, a hardcore show I go to, and he's
Yeah.
like "Oh, yeah, I know that band." I'm like, "Jer Bear? Jer Bear, you know about this band?" And, like, what I always, like,
Jer
will always,
Bear.
like,
Jer Bear was what he was called on MySpace
"Let's
with all
go!"
the X's and everything.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, no, you gotta have the, the, like, white and black studded belt all the way
Oh yeah.
around. You know,
Yeah.
you gotta have the full get up. I know about this. Believe me, I
Yeah.
know about this scene. You've seen some of my makeup looks.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
I know about the scene space.
Yeah. So
Uh,
like yeah, like more sidebar keeping into to this.
oh
Like
yeah, sorry.
so no, trust me, this is great. If you look into the YouTube chat, one of the emotes that we have is Mata Mosca, and it's
Mm.
actually the emote is the skull fly that Mata Mosca's logo is. um and it's funny because like between me and him, like we have a lot of crossover with a lot of the same bands and music and everything. See, there you go. My brother just put it in the YouTube chat right now. If you're able to see it, we saw a lot of the same bands growing up. Like I was like I said, I was a senior, so at the time I was going and I was driving to all these places, going to places that are not technically venues, like abandoned parking lots and abandoned steel mills.
All the best places in life to find good shows.
Yeah, exactly. You know, definitely places where there's not, you know, a chance you might get stabbed by the local 18th Street gang or something. But we're not
Yeah.
gonna talk about that part.
No, no, yeah.
But yeah, so like he was all about that, and um, I ended up having a conversation with Oates, and I found out the same thing. He was very much into hardcore, post-hardcore, and everything. I had a conversation with these groups, with this group of people called Knockout. They're based out of Ohio, and the same thing. Like one of the first big things they did was a combination Smash tournament, hardcore show at the same venue, which was pretty awesome. So they had to like find people in the pit, drag them by the collar, and say, "Hey, we need to get you at your setup."
That's tight.
I don't know if you know Lyric, the ultimate commentator.
Yeah.
She was the same thing. She was the most scene kid girl of all time before she ended up getting to Smash in the FGC. And I remember I posted under your post for, I think you went to go see Gorilla Biscuits, and I was like,
Yeah.
it's literally just we're all like the same like core of like 10 people or 10 types of music listeners that ended up yeah, picking up sticks.
Yeah, I remember Canyon, I think. I like posted a picture of me at FTG, and like Canyon was just like, "Is that FTG?" Which is just like this punk venue in Santa Ana. And I was like, "Yeah, like you know about FTG?" And the only time I had met him before was like we played friendlies at Wave Dash 2022. Like we had just like we were hanging out, we were playing Falcon Dittos. And like I was just like, "Shit, like all right, cool." Like so I don't know, stuff like that's just always cool. It's very cool to like bump into those people.
It's funny too. It's like, so I say like MySpace era, right? So I don't know how old you are, but I'm in my 30s now, right? So me and Oates are probably about like 2 or 3 years apart from each other. So a lot of like the local music and local bands that we saw were kind of like crossing over, like as far as like who was probably playing in the immediate area. And for someone like me, like during the time where like was technically considered golden age for like melee and stuff like that, I was going to like the Knitting Factory. I was going to, you know, I've been to the Whiskey a handful of times, you know, and like I said, self-help graphics and just a bunch of like random backyards where like chances are you can be hit up by gang members because, you know, for some reason gang members just like hanging out at punk shows and ska shows and hardcore shows, and which is, you know, one thing that most people don't realize.
Yeah. No, yeah,
So like seeing that like during that time frame where I could have like known a bunch of these people because I'm also very much their age. I was busy doing something else. All this to really ask, like, I'm kind of wondering, like, where does like that music scene influence come in for you, and like, did it kind of like help like your involvement with FGC and Smash in any way?
uh that's a good question. I mean, kind of like circling back to like the first question or the original question that you were asking, like about like how far back does it go, right? Like for me, it was like my senior year of high school is when I got into esports, and like, like production and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then like at the time that was the balcony was my local. Like that was like and if anyone remembers the balcony, yeah, you guys remember a good one. I miss the balcony every day. But the balcony was a great tournament. Training Mode Tuesdays was a great tournament. Those were like my two like closest locals. And then I like took a break from FGC stuff for a little bit. I did more mainstay esports for a couple of years over quarantine, and then kind of like came back to the FGC
Mm-hmm.
post quarantine. But punk for me started like really, really early on. Shout out to Tony Hawk Pro Skate 4 for introducing
Always.
me to ska. Yes, of course.
it
Like I remember that was
all comes back to Tony Hawk.
it always does. No, I actually remember I was playing it and like I fell in love with the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones because they were in that game. And one day I was driving to school, or my mom was driving me to school in my like freshman year of high school, and then all of a sudden that's like the impression that I get by the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones came on, and I
Hmm.
was like, "What song is this? I know this song. What song is this?" And then like that was my like freshman year of high school, and like my music just kind of like exploded from there. I started listening to a ton of third wave ska, started going to like a bunch of shows. I saw, like uh Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, Mariachi Del Bronx, they when they were just Del Bronx,
Hmm.
and they were I saw Flocking Molly, just like a ton of other bands. That was like high school was mostly like my like ska phase, like a lot of Operation Ivy and stuff like that. And then it
Hmm.
started to like towards my senior year of high school and onward, started listening to a lot more like hardcore.
Hmm.
Um,
Like
Started
classic
going to like a lot
hardcore or like hate breed type of. Uh.
more classic hardcore, most like straight edge youth crew.
Hmm.
So a really good friend of mine, my friend Bobby, his dad is really good friends with the lead guitarist of Gorilla Biscuits, which is
Mm.
how like he knew them. And then like I was like, and me and him just started talking about hardcore, so we go to shows like as often
Hmm.
as we can with work and everything. But like he's awesome, love going to shows with him. So I started getting to like DI, Gorilla Biscuits, like a couple other bands here and there, like Bold, like a couple Nardcore bands.
Doctor No.
Yeah. There you go, right? But yeah, no, like I started listening to like a lot more hardcore. I think that I don't know if like I don't know if music and like FGC stuff really like interacted in terms of like helping to influence one or the other. I would say
Hmm.
more like who I am as a person melds really well with both of those communities,
Hmm.
which is kind of like how I fell into something like that.
Mm. Okay. So like, and the reason I ask is because like you look at like what there's esports, right? There's esports, and then there's Smash and FGC,
Mhm.
right? There's in some way FGC and Smash, they're esports, right? Like there's no two ways about it. But it's
Mhm.
very much very different because of the very much grassroots mentality that it has and kind of has to have by comparison. Like I can't fathom grassroots Fortnite, right? Like
You
what does that
know?
even like what does that look like? What does that sound like, right? But when you think like grassroots FGC, grassroots Smash, like yeah, we'll have a 16-person local inside of like a Denny's on the backside, right? We'll find where whatever we can that's a venue. Like I the lowest grade like FPS kind of thing that I can think of. It's like, oh, we're gonna use the YouTube studio, or the was it YouTube Stadium or whatever the fuck that's called. All right,
Mhm.
they'll rent that out, right, and then that's how they'll do it. That's low end esports, right? For us, like literally someone's garage, because we can fit like 12 people in there. That's the tournament, right? And it's the same thing for like a lot of like underground music, whether it be punk, hardcore, metal, ska, the ska-core scene, especially out here in LA. There's a lot of that like initial crossover, and it's funny because I brought this story before too, that like the original like arcade scene in New York has a very similar story to the New York punk scene. They both started in probably the worst parts of New York. They kind of cultivated their own identity based out of like one singular spot, and from there it kind of like expanded. And you have your different styles of it in different ways, but ultimately, like with like two different details, you're telling the exact same story of a bunch of people trying to make do with things that they don't have, right? And I think that's kind of the reason why I asked that. And it's all about like a strong DIY ethic to get things done
Mhm.
when you don't have something, to kind of show for it. You know what I mean? I guess I think it's part of the reason why I asked that question. You know?
Yeah, no, I mean, there definitely is, like, a lot of parallels to that, right? I can think a lot of, like, times where, it's just like house tourneys and house shows are very much built on, like, the same ideas, right? You got a text from somebody that is just like, "Hey, I'm gonna have," like, "I decided to put on a house tourney," and, I think the balcony isn't like a great example of that. For those of you that have never been to the balcony, it was out in Walnut, and it was this like it was just somebody's house. Shout out to the TOs though. Shout out to Party Time Shuffle, Alex. I love you to death. I hope you are doing well wherever you are. She is amazing. She is one of the coolest people you will ever meet in your entire life. She just this random house, they open up the garage, they put a couple setups in there, they put some setups outside under an easy up, and then they had some setups inside. They had like taken all the furniture out of like the family room area and just put in PM setups. um Coolest tourney ever. Like the tourney was just awesome. Like it's super off the cuff, everything was super casual, but like you had a great time and you knew like really cool people there.
Hmm.
It like I mean, hardcore like a hardcore show like is pretty much the same thing, right? If somebody says like, "Oh, there's a house show," you drive around not sure where it is because you're like, I don't know, it could be any one of these houses, dude. Like, this is the street it's supposed to be on, and there's a lot of cars here, so I'm assuming it's one of these. You know, you kind of like walk around, you're listening for the sound, you're like, that
Like
sound, somebody's
that.
playing blast beats over there.
That's
That's that
definitely
that
blast beats.
yeah. That a control stick? No, there's a fox over there. Hold on, I got this. And you wander in,
Someone's
you
multi-shining
walk
crazy.
exactly. You go
Multi-shine
in this
contest
room
is happening right now.
exactly. You go in and there's there's a handful of people standing around, maybe like, having a beer, somebody smoking over there, you're like, oh, you walk past all of them and you're just like, oh, hey, I'm here for the tourney. They're like, all right, cool. It's $10. And like, they don't ask, like, they're not like, oh, did you like pre-reg? Okay,
Register.
here's your lanyard. And like, okay, did you fill out this form? No, they're just like, all
Yeah.
right, cool. It's like $10. And I'm like, all right, cool. You hand them $10. They're like, half the time the TO and or the person taking cash at the door is like they're like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, I got you. Yeah, I got enough
Yep.
bucks. Here you go. Like you can think of those experiences, and that's
Yeah.
exactly what it was going like house turnings or house shows. Like that kind of stuff. Just like those
It's
parallels live
it's
so
so the
brightly, and
same. Yeah.
like, and you know what? Nothing feels more like home than that. Nothing feels more like home.
It's the inner degeneracy in all of us, you know.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think probably one of my favorite like house show experiences was a buddy of mine said, "Hey, there's this show happening in somebody's backyard. And I was like, all right, let's roll. We roll up. We see an entrance on one gate to the house, but we hear the music coming from the other gate. He's like, all right, cool. We go through, we walk around, and we go in the backyard, and we're like, well, this is not what I expected, because they had the band at the top of the pool, and the pool's completely drained out, so the pit was like at the bottom.
Nice.
And I see one of my buddies, his name was Brandon, and I was like, wait, he's playing bass for this band. Why is he playing bass for this band? I know him as a sax player for a different band. And I go to him and he's like, hey man, what do you do? He's like, oh yeah, they needed a bass player, so they hit me up. And I was like, yeah, I'm down. I know, and I learned all their songs last week. I go to like another house, I go to a different show later on, and I see him, and I was like, hey, what are you performing with them? Like, yeah, but I'm also performing with them. And my original band's here, so I'm gonna be on stage like 3 times.
Yep. Oh.
Cut to like 4 months later. The band Mata Mosca, which was the band that he was in, ended up being in more full time, is at that same house again. We go there. We never saw a cancellation, but like a gang of cars are waiting outside of the house because no one saw the MySpace post that it got canceled. They said, oh yeah, it got moved to next week. And we're like, fuck. So we head back and there's no more pool all of a sudden.
Just gone?
It was gone. They filled it in with dirt and they put like rugs and they sprayed it down so that like dust wouldn't kick up, right? But you know, that part was neither here nor there. Yeah.
All right.
But like, yeah, those. Hey, my brother remembers that. It's cool. Yeah, that was wild. As we drove away, I forgot I had a water bottle on top of the car and it fell over, and people were laughing at us.
happens to the best of us.
Happens to the best of us. So one thing I kind of want to ask, like, since you. Oh yeah, the brown berets were there. That was hilarious. That's so. Oh, that was funny. We're not going to talk about that part though. Brown berets at like at you know, predominantly Latin punk shows and ska shows are always a fun thing to see. So like at this point, kind of like, how much of like your journey do you feel like? Do you realize, I think I've accomplished a lot? Like, how far into like being a part of, whether it be FGC or a Smash or whichever one of the scenes, like, at what point did you realize, like, I think I'm doing something and I'm creating like a real like portfolio for the stuff that I've done? Like, was there like an aha moment of like, I think I can like say I'm very enveloped in this scene? Like, did you ever have a moment like that, or did someone like ever point that out to you, or like were you even conscious like such a thing even happened?
I would say there's been a couple, but this year especially, I think I had a few. So I got into Wave Dash commentary in 2022. That was my first major.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a fill-in commentator. I was not picked on the original lineup, and then
Mm-hmm.
somebody couldn't make it, and then I was next in line. And I was still, very stoked to go. Obviously, super, super gracious for the opportunity. But like, it was definitely like I was like, okay, like, like I get it. I like I'm a fill-in. And then that same year I did Lombardi 3 and I did top 16 to top 8. And that I was like, oh, like,
Mm.
Lombardi's not exactly a small tournament. It's like,
No.
like it's like a little mini regional. And like, and I was like doing top 16. I was like, all right, like this is pretty cool. Like I'm like happy to be doing like something a little bit later in bracket.
Especially considering
Um,
too, because like Lombardi 3 was supposed to be a Panda qualifier event, right? Because so
yeah,
there's a
it
lot more
was.
eyes on there too.
Yeah, we were talking about that a ton during the event. And like I was like, okay, like this is pretty cool. Like I got to commentate like like a pretty decent part of like an event. And Not that, like, I ever wanna diminish, well, my brain likes to diminish, accomplishments, but, not that I ever wanna diminish the accomplishment, but I was kind of like I was like, "Okay, well, there's, like, a little bit of SoCal bias, there's a little," but, like, I've been around Melee long enough and, like, so, like, there's part of it is like, yeah, like, like, I was not that I was likely to get in, but I was like, I knew I would've got in for Pools commentary. It's just nice that I got in for top 16.
Hmm.
And then, when I got the offer for Slashback this year, I did top 48 to top 8. And that was like I was like, "Oh." And that was the furthest I've ever gone for an event that I was hired out for.
Hmm.
That was in NorCal, that was in San Jose.
Okay.
Um, and, like, I was like, "Oh, like, this is kinda cool. I've driven about 300 miles to get to this commentary event." Like,
Yeah.
I was like, "That's kind of interesting." Like, I like, "Oh, now this is, like, the first event that I'm commentating that I've gone this far for."
Yeah.
And that was, like, a super, super cool experience. And that was, like, one of the moments where I was like, "Oh, okay, this is really cool." And then for, Wave Dash 2023, I was, first pick it was for pools, for doubles and singles, but I was still, like, I was part of the opening picks, like, and that was, like,
Hmm.
super cool for me. I was like, "You know what? All right." I
You were
got,
definitely considered.
yeah, I got picked first round. And with my own locals, like, the events have always been getting bigger, and every time they get a little bigger, I get a little more like, "Okay, we're doing something right. We're doing something right." This most recent monthly that
Hmm.
I did was the first time we had 170 entrants.
Woo!
Um, and we
Jesus.
hit and exceeded venue capacity by a lot, and we now for this month had to set a venue cap.
You had
And
to
there's
cap
something
it.
bittersweet about, like, doing that, right? Because,
Yeah.
for the past 2 years, I spent everything in my power to be like, let's make it as big as possible. Big, big, big. We gotta do it better. We gotta, like, do everything as great as possible. We gotta, like, draw in more people. And then this was, like, the first time where I was like, "Oh, I'm not limited by me anymore. I'm limited by the venue."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Well, that's like, you know, it sucks to know that I can't do more immediately, but it does kind of feel cool to know that I hit that point that, like, like, I did enough for the scene that, like, now I gotta look for a new venue. Now I gotta, like, find a way to make things bigger to, you
To
know,
accommodate.
start yeah, like, to start, like, putting on bigger events. That was really cool for me. So I was like, cool. That's like a pretty cool landmark, like, and so that's currently like what I'm working on for FGC stuff. And, like, I think all those points in my life where like, I'm exceeding what my expectations are is always like those points where I'm just like, okay, I am kind of, like, doing something good. Like, I am
Yeah.
kind of like, making it a bit. But beyond that, like, I, d- every time I've hit one of those, I've never been sated, like, you're never any less hungry than you were the first day you were like, let's put on a little local, you know, like, I'm always hungry for more. If, I had the means to it, I would be putting on, 200-person events every week, like, I would love to, like, that's the kind of person I am. I am very much like, "Hey, if I can dedicate to this 100%, I will give you 200." Like,
Yeah.
I love making things bigger, and, so that's always on my mind. So, like, I hit all these points where I'm like, "Oh, yeah, like, I'm really doing it, but I'm gonna keep doing it."
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, uh there's always the want to grow and to move forward and to kind of like better or move that goalpost to know that you can actually do it. And there was this saying that I heard someone said that, like, you are never um you're never either getting old or you never stop progressing unless you kind of like stop learning, right? You don't lose out on anything if you constantly have that drive to move forward, to do something better. Like, if you don't reach that goal, that doesn't mean you're less than. That just means you are figuring out how to make it to that next level. But the point is, you're still going, you're still trying, you're still doing your best to make sure that it actually happens. And to kind of hear that, like, oh, you have to consider getting a new venue because you don't have enough space, and for all you know, the fire marshal might come through.
That was a very real concern. And like I remember I had to make some announcement at the start of the event. I was like, hey guys, y'all are awesome, I really appreciate the support. After your pool, I have to kick you out. Like, I was like, I need you guys to wait outside because we don't have a choice. Like, that was insane. We had Tekken 8 stop by,
Oh,
apparently like the people in SoCal that were like doing they had like the demo setups for Tekken 8. They dropped by. People were able to play Tekken 8 for like a bit early. Um, you know, we had I had tons and tons of high level players. Speed Kicks came out, Nubenheimer, Red Ditto, ton of other like super super prominent FGC names
some big
came
old
out. It was
names.
yeah, it was super super fun. Like love a lot of those like FGC guys, and I was super gracious that they were able to come out.
So far, do you like have like a favorite that you've seen so far, or like not seen, but like, do you have like a favorite tournament so far that you've ran or been at yet? They say, "Oh my God, see this
Ooh,
crazy thing happened here," and like that was because of the team that I was involved in.
that's a good question. Um, so oh, that's a good question.
If you
I
have a couple of them,
really
talk them all. I want to
yeah,
hear all of
uh,
these.
I would say Slashback was one of the coolest ones I got to do because it was my first time. It was like the first big event for me, for like mainstay FGC games that I did, like your
Hmm.
traditional fighters. And that was insanely cool for me because I was like, oh, like I'm coming out for a pretty big event. Like, and I was doing my research beforehand of all the matches and like who's, like doing like all my projections and everything, doing all my bracket research. And I was like, I make like notes spreadsheets before every commentary block. Like if I'm gonna do a commentary block that I'm hired for, I do notes spreadsheets of like all the players to make sure I know who everyone is and everything like that. And I'm doing all that, and I remember I was like, I like don't even need to look up anything about a lot of these players. Like I know who these guys are. I know what
Yeah,
characters they play. I know what colors they play. I know where they're from. Like these are like big names.
yeah.
Like and that was like a super cool experience because I was like, oh, I'm like not that I was in over my head, but I was like, oh, this is that level. Like, like this
Yeah.
is what it feels like. Um the end NorCal was super, super cool. The anime FGC scene in
Hmm.
NorCal are some of the nicest and sweetest people on the planet. Huge shout out to Shatani and Kraken Atkins for housing me that weekend. They were super, super like super, super nice. And I can tell that story a little later, just kind of like put myself in like a bad situation and they were super super nice about it.
Ooh.
They let me crash with them. But uh they were awesome. Wave Dash was also super cool. I did commentary and ran pools, so it just
Hmm.
felt really good to constantly be involved in the event. I got to meet a ton of really cool people through that. I met Layson, who does production and stuff like
Hmm.
that. He was awesome. I got to meet Blue Rose Tori, who's doing photography. She is an absolute sweetheart. Love her.
I didn't realize she was so tall. I've never
literally
met her. And
the first thing I said to her was like, I was like, I'm sorry, do you do modeling or something? Like, you're amazing. And she was like, no, I kind of prefer to be behind the camera. And I was like, oh, that's such an artist thing to say. How dare you? Like, I was like, I walked into this. No, but she's awesome. She does amazing
Yeah,
work. She,
she
did
does.
her own thing at Evo. Like, look, if
Oh, the
look through
picture.
her album.
Did you probably the my favorite picture that she took was, and I think it was hers, where oh god, what's his name? Who won Street Fighter 6? What was his name? It's escaping me. Oh god.
Not Big Bird. Hold on
It was
one
Angry Bird.
moment.
Angry
Angry
Bird.
Bird. I was
Yeah,
gonna say, I was
yes.
like something bird.
No, Mena didn't win.
No,
Angry Bird.
was
Thank you. Angry Bird. It is Angry Bird.
yeah.
Right before his knees hit the ground as he was about to pray, just like his
Yes.
knees were like a few inches off of the ground. She was the one who caught that. And I was like, that is an astounding
So
photo.
good.
Yeah, she just has a great eye for everything. So like, people, if you're not hiring Tori, hire her.
If I can plug anyone for photography, it's Tori. Jeff is also super, super good.
Yes.
Like love both of them. But like that picture Tori took at Evo was like, I was like,
That
ooh,
was
that like that needs to be on like a banner like at Evo every year.
that has
Like
to
that
be.
photo is so cool. But circling back, I super loved. I'd say like Slashback and Wave Dash this year were super, super like the most fun I've had being involved in an event. I have a absolute blast running my own events and things like that. It is not that it's not fun, but I am always like me and Jerry have this in common where like we're perfectionists. Everything needs to go perfect. And the
Yep.
second something goes like even slightly wrong, it bothers. Like it's like it genuinely bothers me when
Yeah.
I'm like, this wasn't perfect. It was supposed to be perfect. And it's and people will be like everyone had a good time anyway, like it, don't worry about it too much. And I'm like, but you don't understand. Like I was like, I expect this out of myself. And I expect like the event to be perfect for everybody. So like I think when I'm running my own events, I am like constantly trying to make sure everything is going as good as possible and like doing everything I can. Though, oh actually, sorry, I'm gonna keep rambling for a second.
Please.
The event that I think I had the most fun with that I ran was for Owen Tuesdays, which is my weekly. For our 50th installment, we did a Guilty Gear Strive crew battle. We did Schoolyard House Draft, where we are just like, all right, like I'm gonna like, draw numbers. You're gonna be a captain. You're gonna be a captain. All right, now you guys are just gonna go back and forth and pick, just like regular like playground style. That was one of the most fun I think I've had and everyone else in the venue has had. We had like, like 25, 26-ish people, something like that. And they were having a fucking blast. Like, like everyone's popping off, you had like, your local, like we have like an Axel who's, like not like super, super strong, but like when he went up, he like did like he did like a time stop super just to taunt and then continued the combo and we were like everyone's losing it, everyone's like popping up. We like I think that like is one of my most viewed clips on YouTube of all time is like this like time stop super. It's one of the craziest things. Everyone's losing it. It like came down to the wire. There was like a couple like really tense moments of like, oh my god, are you about to like upset this person in like a crew battle? And then like, you had like the last minute sweep and then like it was the two best players in the tournament at the time. And they were like, like head to head at the very
Yeah.
end. And everyone's like, oh my god. It's that kind of thing. And like, I think the energy of that really just like did it for me. It was like, I was like, everyone's just having fun. That's all I've ever wanted out of events. And so I think like that event for me really is like a warm spot in my heart. Just knowing like I was like, hey, this is like, like I helped create this, like I was
you pushed forward something that People definitely remembered apparently because we have Ziggy over here in the chat saying they remembered someone named Nick talk was it so much smack. They were talking so much smack.
Yeah. Shout out to Nick, aka Enigma. Super nicest dude you will ever talk to in your life. All smiles. I have never seen that dude frown once in his life. The second it goes into a crew battle, I like said before, and I was like, keep the the trash talk playful, but like, yeah, have fun with it. It's a crew battle. Fuck them kids. And he was like, he's just like, oh, fuck you, y'all some shitters, and like he's like talking shit on people that he has never beaten in bracket, but he does not care. My man's going in, and I love
That's
that
great.
about him.
That's
that
great.
like I was like, you go, Nick. He's like popping off for his friends. There's a there's a video of like after his teammate wins, him and Chris twerking on him after he won. That is also a highly viewed video on my channel. Like everyone had so much fun at that event. It was just an amazing event. We had an absolute like stellar time. I like that kind of a thing is like we started this conversation about like like grassroots and about like being a part of this. You don't get that at like very sterile esports majors,
Yeah.
right? Like you can't recreate that. That
No.
has to come from grassroots. I've seen these dudes every week for the past 2 years.
Yeah.
These are my friends, like we'll go out after, we'll do whatever. Like like I would do, anything to make sure that these guys get to do what they love, which is, which is coming and competing. And, like when you have that kind of like genuine like family in a community, like nothing beats the energy.
It's funny because like when you go to like a tournament like or a certain series of tournaments constantly over and over again, you'll always be some dude in Valorant tournament teabagged and got in trouble. See, that doesn't matter in FGC. But like
That is encouraged.
very much so. I mean, so the point I was gonna get was like when you go to like enough tournaments, right? Enough the same amount of tournaments, the same types of tournaments, over and over again, you just inherently become familiar with these people, right? It's like when I was going to concerts all the time, I would be going to this place in the Valley. It's been closed now for a couple years, but it was a place called Cobalt Cafe where everyone went there every other weekend. And you may not know any of these people by name, but they'll all be like, hey, what's going on? And then you talk to the person next to you. Did you know them? I have no idea who the hell they were, but they were but they were around.
Like, you don't understand. I've seen that dude's face 100 times
in the past like 2 years. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't need to know their name anymore.
No, you don't need to.
Like, no, that is actually like okay, I could talk very, very long about like how cool I think the FGC is and like all of this like little stuff that goes into that. But like that is like a thing. Is like there are so many people that I would talk to and I'm like, I have no idea what his first or last name is. Like
I don't even know their tag.
Yeah, like sometimes you don't even know their tag. But I have had people that like I'm like, yeah, I don't know their real name. To me, that is Meeks. And Meeks is a homie. He bought me a drink when we went to Festival of Fights or whatever. Like anything like that. Like I break bread with this man. Like I don't need to know his name anymore. But like who we are to each other goes beyond like whatever name he happens to have. To me, that's Meeks. Now I don't want to completely derail your show, but I could talk very, very long about how like that whole concept in itself.
Give us a taste of it real quick, actually.
Sure.
Give us a quick taste.
So I genuinely believe that the FGC has not only the capacity, but is currently, and as long as we are continuing to make effort, will continue to be forever. The best place to be an openly queer person in a competitive environment of all time. Like, full stop. I have known so many, like, there are so many people that I knew before and after I came out, and they only ever knew me as Dr. No. They did not know, like, they didn't know who I was before. They just like, yeah, it's Dr. No. And then, like, it what, like, people don't, like, you don't always think about it consciously, but everyone is kind of microdosing this, like, alter in presentation that you go through when you enter into a scene, and you get to choose your name. You know, you choose your tag and your play style, and then how you present in that scene is entirely defined by you. That is a microdosing of, like, gender representation, and people don't talk about that a whole lot. But it's like there is something very liberating about that experience. That is why people feel so comfortable being themselves and find, like, such family and, like, community amongst the scene, because whatever you decide to bring to the table in a fighting game community is you. That is you. And, you know, if we want to relate it back to, you know, like DIY scenes and punk scenes, do you do full corpse paint every day? No. But when you go to a show, that's who you want to be, and that's who people will see you as. Like, that is, like, a cool concept, and like that is why, like, I think these scenes and like how you operate within them is, like, so fascinating to me. And like I you know, I've been met with overwhelming support both in the punk scene and within the FGC since coming out. And, you know, like, I have been met with absolutely nothing but open arms and loving support from everyone in the scene. I got tons and tons of messages. I still get messages from, like, people that attend my tournaments that say, like, "Hey, like, I'm, like, a trans person. I have, you know, really struggled to, you know, like, find it in me to go to my first tournament, but, like, I saw you on camera being yourself, and that made me want to go to another scene. You know, that made me want to try." Or, you know, like, "Hey, like, I saw that, like, you know, like, a queer person is running this tournament. I would like to come because this is where I feel safe." That kind of a thing is beyond invaluable to me. Like, that is, like, that is, like, the weight of human life to me, is like that, like, is so important. And I think that is one of the coolest things that we bring to the table when it comes to, you know, the FGC, is we bring, "Hey, present as yourself, come as you are. We will accept you because we care about this game, and we are bonded by, you know, this friendship and this, you know, this love of the game." And then you spill into, like, what we were just talking about, where, you know, like, you see these people every day, and sometimes, you know, maybe you'll never talk to them, and you'll just be like, "Yo, like, that's the homie." Or maybe you will. Maybe you'll decide to, you know, talk to anyone. I met my girlfriend through fighting games. She started attending my tournament. We started hanging out afterwards, and we've been dating for a while, for a few months now, or 5 months, something like that.
Something along those lines.
Um, yeah. And it's been, you know, like, it is crazy the people that you can, you know, that you can meet in this scene when everyone has that little bit of less pressure than, like, you know, the only thing that matters when you come is, "Hey, what's your tag?" And you're gonna play at this pool. You know,
Yep.
that's all people care about.
Yeah. And also, if there was no trans or queer people, PM would have died a long time ago. So would have Guilty Gear. So I don't know.
Yeah. Guilty Gear without queer people is I don't know. At that point, I think it's like I think it's 4 people from Idaho, like, and that's about it. Like, I don't think there's I don't know. I don't know how many more there are.
I still stand by the queerest game out there is Guilty Gear, and the only one that competes with it is PM.
Yeah, it's really true.
Both in player base and especially in the lore of Guilty Gear, the actual characters themselves. That has I think per cap. Before Overwatch, it was definitely a Guilty Gear. So I think that's pretty fun.
You know, if I'm gonna clown on esports for another quick second,
Please.
like Overwatch, they introduce gay characters. They're like, oh, it's fine, like it's cool. Representation is always cool.
Mm.
But I read any of the lore of the characters that are queer in Guilty Gear, and it is the coolest fucking things you will ever read. Obviously, like everyone heard about Bridget, obviously, when she when she was represented in Strive. You read her story, it is one of the like cutest things. There's so much attention to detail in her character design that has been talked about. Daisuke has talked about, like, he's like, oh yeah, like I designed her with like a big puffy jacket because like it hides and obscures her body. Like I gave her like a collar that helps cover her Adam's apple and things like that. And it was like, and she wears gloves because to deal with like like bodily dysphoria. And I'm like, no, you didn't just like make this character, like trans because you could. You like made this character trans, and then whether you did for whatever reason, maybe it was, he says it was written all along in the plan. I believe that because the amount of detail that he puts into actually making a healthy representation of this character is like, it's impressive. Testament is the same way.
I was about to bring that up.
Like there's so many like characters where you're just like, oh no, these are like, they feel very real. They aren't just like queer for queer's sake. It's like, like, which is still important. It is still important just to have, like representation of all kinds, but it's very, very refreshing to see characters that are just like very like
intense thought and intense like intent was created rather than I think we could conveniently retroactively.
Yeah,
that's what it seems like in Overwatch. But I don't know. I don't do Overwatch. Yeah. I don't know. So that's a whole separate issue.
Yeah, no, of course.
One thing I do want to ask now, kind of like at this point, like since your time, you've well, real quick, actually, I guess kind of from the first one, how many years has it been to like now, from like, I guess day one to now? And how long has this journey really been happening now that I think about it?
Of like FGC stuff?
Yeah, like from like first tournament to like about nowish. Like, how long has that been happening?
My first tournament would have been 2014, 2015. No, it was 2015 because it was high school, and it was a house tourney that was running at the same time Apex 2015 was running.
Really?
Yes. We were doing a house tourney, and then we were gonna watch Apex. That was the plan. That was the first tourney I got fucking trounced in. And that was the first like tourney I attended, period. Then, so that was 2015, so about 8 years ago. I would say I've been doing this about 5 years. I've been a part of the FGC for longer, but I would say like first tourney would have been 2015. My first activity in starting to like orchestrate and run tournaments and do stuff would have been 2016. Kind of like fell off, kind of had busy things going on in 2017. Life stuff happens, came back in 2018. For quarantine, I was doing mainstay esports stuff, and then like I really came back into the FGC and decided to dedicate to it full time. But I would say like overall the arc has been about like 8 years for me.
So like reflecting over your 8 years, what's kind of been like, what's been some of like your through lines? Like, can you see like your milestones, whether it be your milestone first tournament, your milestone first time TOing? Can you actually see those like in retrospect, and have you like, and do you think about it in any way, or it's kind of like, we're moving forward, so I can think back if I need to think back about it, but it's not really something that kind of like comes to mind unless you kind of have to go out of your way to think about it?
What do you mean by through lines? Just to kind of get an
Like,
idea.
I guess like so like for me, like my general story with competitive anything really dates back to about 2018, right? So in about 2017, 2018, my brother sends me uh the doc, the Smash doc,
Mhm.
right? And I'm like, oh, this is crazy. I didn't know Smash was like this, right? I had an idea Street Fighter was the way it was and all kinds of stuff, but like I wasn't really about it because again, during the time frame, I was going to shows and then I started going then when I went to college, I had to do that, then I had to start working and the kind of like most of my favorite things I wanted to do had to fall by the wayside because I had terrible schedules. I was just emotionally drained from everything because work sucks, right? So in like 2017, 2018, I noticed across the street from where I would work, it's like, hey, a lot of people gather up there on Fridays. And I wonder what that is. I come to find out that's where Friday Night Turnip was. If you remember that one. Um,
Oh,
so Friday Night
hit me in the
Turnip,
feels for a second.
Friday Night Turnip was there, right? Smash Doc, I ended up watching. My brother ends up finding this like quick, I want to say it was like about 15-minute documentary called Locals. And on the thumbnail, it's actually Jerry. And
I think
it's
I actually know the video.
yeah, Ryan B is the person who did it, right? And like he's Jerry's the thumbnail, and it's funny how much I bring this up, but I'm thinking about it, I was like, oh, so this is, and it kind of gave me this like window of like understanding, like maybe I can like go back to how it was when I felt when I would be going to shows back in the day. Um, and then the next thing that happened, Ultimate drops, and I'm like, oh, let me get into it. So as Ultimate drops, I cashed the first summit for Ultimate Summit. I watched Summon 8. I see all of this. I see all the different tournaments um all throughout 2019. In 2022, I think to myself, I don't think I'm going to be that good at playing, but I do want to talk to people. And I kind of like want to like get their stories and kind of like know who some of these people are and kind of like talk to them about it. And when I was about to do that, the first place I was going to go to was this local in Santa Clarita that I'm sure didn't isn't back anymore because it was in March of 2020 when it happened. Needless to say, I didn't get to go to my first local. But I
Mm.
followed Smash. I followed all of that up and through when tournaments started coming through. And when I first actually stepped outside of my door to go to an in-person thing, the first thing I saw, or the first thing I went to, was this Ultimate local in the San Fernando Valley in Canoga Park called it's ran by Dreamcatcher Gaming, but it was called Brintstar Depths.
Oh, I do remember. I never went, but I do remember Brinstar Depths.
Brintstar Depths, and they flew out Icy Mist, the Ultimate Samus player. They flew her out, and that was my first time at a local. That was my first time competing in person, and I was able to just like hang out and talk. And then subsequently, things transpired, and now I am where I am today, in my room, in my little office space, talking to people on YouTube about their experiences with Smash and FGC. So like
Mm.
I kind of like see the little markers and the kind of like little life events, and that's kind of how I got to where I got to. But I think about that because in retrospect, yeah, 2018 was 5 years ago, but like what I have done has kind of only really happened within the last 2 years. So I guess kind of that's the kind of question I'm asking for. Like, where are some of your milestones, and like how does that story move along, and do you even really think about it that much?
Yeah, I would say I don't know how much I think about it. I'm a lot more of a looking forward person. But when I do think about it, it is very cool. I would say, you know, Apex 2015 house tourney was like the first, like, I was like the first time I had ever gone to like a tourney and everything, and I ever actually like cared. Uh, you know, chased commentary for a little bit, kind of, like whatever, blah blah blah. And then 2018, 2017 or 2018, first time I I sent an application for commentary and got in. Was the SoCal Melee Arcadian. It was at the esports arena in Santa Ana at the
Hmm.
time. Um, shout out to Spark for co-commentating with me for doubles and singles when my co-commentator Mohammed was unable to make it, and Spark like walked by and was like, "Can I like jump on?" And I was like, "I don't know. I don't make the rules." And so he like jumped on and we like talked about Melee for like 3 hours. It was awesome. I had a great time with him. But uh but that was like a pretty big moment where I like sent in an application and got in, and I was like, "Oh, like that's like really cool." Um, did did a couple more Arcadians here and there, with like other stuff. Then quarantine hit. And I would say one of my other like through lines was, funny enough, I was working so over quarantine, I did English broadcasts for the Japanese League of Legends scene, the pro scene.
Oh, what the
And
heck?
yeah, it was just something I was doing for like the fun of it. God awful hours because you are live broadcasting a Japan event at
Yeah,
3 p.m., which is 10 p.m. start time for us here the day
yeah.
before. And I was doing that for a while and I was having a pretty good time with it. It was just fun. It was all solo commentary, which is definitely difficult, but taught me a lot. Um, and I was doing mainstay esports stuff. I did Valorant for a little while, and
Hmm.
one of the through lines, funny enough, was an event I worked, which was the the qualifier for the Ignition series, which was just like that season of competitive Valorant. I actually got to commentate some very big teams. I got to commentate Bonker Esports, FBX, and Project SW were like three like the big names that were in there.
Hmm.
And and a couple of the like players even got picked up by other people, all that kind of a stuff. But I was commentating that event, and my co-commentator, who I will leave unnamed, uh we didn't I will be as nice and I will spare as many details as possible.
That's fair. That's
Uh
fair.
we had kind of God, I'm really trying. I don't want to say anything bad,
Yeah,
but
that's fine.
he wanted things to be a certain way and did not respond well when I asked if they could be changed. Um that is the easiest way to put it.
Hmm.
Um but but like, and I remember I had the thought that I was like, do I really want to do mainstay esports? Like, I don't like this content space that much because, like, the League of Legends community is the League of Legends community, and the Valorant community is the Valorant community when it comes
Hmm.
to putting content out there, responding, etc. Um, and even the other talent I was working with around my level was a bit more aggressive than I ever want to be. And at
Hmm.
some point, I kind of said to myself, I think I would rather like not make as much money, but be happy in the FGC and this content space than I would ever be if I kept going with mainstay esports and had to like, you know, be cutthroat and shark people for opportunities and, like, do everything I can to claw like my way, claw my way into everything and,
Yeah.
like get the biggest piece of the pie and everything. I'm just not that person. I don't like it's just not in me, Like I I'm thankful for the opportunities I get and I'm not here to, you know, badmouth and try to cut people down to make sure I get my share. It's just not who I am.
Yeah.
And so the second quarantine was over, I started looking around and I was like, I'm gonna start a local. I want something I want, like a tournament. At the time, it was because I wanted to have a place I could get a lot of experience, and there was not any offline locals left
Hmm.
in SoCal. I was one of the first to bring offline FGC locals back to SoCal.
Oof.
Um, and I was just like, I want a place that I can go and do commentary consistently. That was what I wanted out of it. Cause I was like, I want to be able to get, practice, get loose, get, like comfortable with the flow, everything like that.
Work on the
Uh,
craft.
yeah. And that was what I did. And it's blown up, it's grown. So I think one of the through lines was hitting, that point where hitting the breaking point with major esports, which all that long rant was basically just to say that.
Hmm.
But hitting that like breaking point, right? Where I was just like, okay, I just can't do it. I can't do major esports. I'm sorry, like this scene isn't for me. Um, so I, go from that to my next one was saying I want to start a local. Guilty Gear Strive has just come out, like I want to start a
Hmm.
local. Start a local, start, just like running tournaments, doing that kind of stuff. And then after that, I think my next like through line was assembling like my first real commentary reel. Um, and like at the time it was a mixed bag of mainstay esports stuff and FGC stuff. And I was, I did that for a little bit. And then, like I was like, okay, well, like I'm putting together a reel, like it's time to start, you know, swinging, trying to claw into the league above, right? Trying to, trying to start swinging with the big boys. And then I would say the next through line after that would have been either Wave Dash or Lombardi, like the first couple events that I started sending applications to and was getting received really well. Um, and that was like one of the ones where I was like, okay, like I'm doing it again, like I am making progress. And then this year the through line was Slashback and Wave Dash 2023, which was, like I was like, okay, cool. Like I'm still getting good strides. I'm still working my way up the ladder. And so, you know, I tweeted about this a little while ago. There's like one more event that I'd really like to work this year, which is Festival of Fights in November. I'd love to be able to work that event. That'd be a great event to close out the year with.
Hmm.
And round out like that would be my like third big event of the year. Um, I guess other than my own event, which
Yeah.
blew up, but like that would be like the first one where I'm invited out to, which is really cool. Um, and uh, yeah, I would say those are my major like through lines, and then there's so many really cool people I've met along the way. Like Vern, ton of other people that like are FGC people, Furshaw, that are FGC people in other scenes, like other regions, and they'll come out, they'll just be like out for whatever reason, and they'll be like, yeah, like, let me jump on the commentary, and they'll like get to meet me, and they'll be like, you're like, yeah, you were like super cool, like I love like like working with you or whatever, or, like, oh, I love your commentary, like you have like a great event here, and like that kind of stuff. Like those people continue to inspire me. I am constantly inspired by Jerry and Georgie. I think they're absolute goats of their craft.
Hmm.
And
Definitely.
there's tons of other TOs out there that like stay inspiring me. And I just keep thinking to myself, like if through lines could be people, there's a few people that I could name and be like, yeah, these people really meant like a lot to me in, moving up in the scene.
And molded that trajectory.
Mhm, mhm.
that's that's super great. I mean, it sometimes you don't realize the culmination of like what you have earned or what you've gone through until you've taken at least 1 second to kind of like step back and be like, oh, this was my first level, and now I made it to my next level, and now I'm at this level, and I can almost see where I am going to be once I hit that next level, and like sometimes it's planned, and you have your plan. Other times, like you realize it after the fact, and it's like, oh, I did do a lot, didn't I? Right. And I just it always depends on the person, but it's always good every now and then to kind of like sit back and kind of be retro and have like a retrospective of yourself, because for that thought that you said, sometimes your brain diminishes your own accomplishments. Sometimes it's good to sit back and be like, hey, I've been through a lot and I've done a lot, and look where I am now. I am, being selected for bigger events, crazier events much further than my local area. You've had to reconsider where your events are going to be held now to accommodate people wanting to show up. So yeah, there's never a shortage of being able to kind of like say, hey, I think I know where we want to go with all of this. So that's
Mhm.
super cool.
Thank you.
Do you have like, now that you've kind of like, now that we've together gone this journey on your retrospective on your life here, have you kind of like mapped out, or do you think like wherever your next like steps in this space, like, do you have any of that mapped out, or you think those will come in when it comes, and like whatever my next level up or my next plateau will be, or next portion of the plateau or next level I get to, that'll be when it happens, and now find out what it is months later upon reflection. Like, which is it? Like, is it planned, or like I think I know where it's going, but let's see what happens.
I always kinda think of it as I'm pushing in a direction,
Mm-hmm.
and, it's kinda like water flowing down a hill. Like, I'm always gonna get to the bottom, but, I don't exactly know what passageways are gonna open up. I don't know, like, what turns or bends I'm gonna hit along the way. Um, you know, the thing that I think about a lot is w the a couple things are like my like next tier, which is for SoCal events or California events in general, commentating top eights. Like finishing out a tourney that I got hired to go to for commentary and commentating a top eight. That is like very, very high on my list. Like that would be like super cool. If it's just a regional or whatever, I don't expect to do that at a major just yet. It obviously would be insane. And yes, I'm not gonna say no to the opportunity, but like if I'm gonna be
Certainly.
realistic, like I like if Slashback 2024, if I go and they're like, hey, we want you to do top eight, like that would be I would be through the roof. And I think I am at the level where I'm qualified to do that. Um, I then going forward, I think one of the other big things for me is an event that is far enough that I would have to fly for, or like Vegas where it's kind of on the cuff. Like I could have even flown to NorCal if I was, like on it, but one, didn't have the money. 2, didn't have the time.
Mhm.
But like, like Vegas, right? Like that's like you're not gonna drive there and back. Like at least in a quick turnaround. You're expecting
Yeah.
to go for like a whole event, like a multi-day event that is far enough away that I'm like I either need to fly or find like a group to carpool with.
Mhm.
And and getting hired out for an event like that. Even if it's pools, like if I did Evo pools, I'd be through the fucking roof excited. Like that would
Yeah.
be like amazing. I would be, going ballistic if I did, like Evo pools. I always, like I didn't get to go this year because I didn't have the money, and I, always said like as a joke, I always say like, don't worry, I'm just gonna commentate it next year. But genuinely, like that is always the goal. I would love
Yeah.
to commentate Evo. There's tons of amazing melee events all across the United States that I am like I will send an application to, and if I get the chance,
It's gonna
like if they
happen.
were to hire me, I would love to like fly out. Like I'd love to have an excuse to just be like, you know what? Send it. Let's do it. Like I'd love to make something like that happen. And I
Yeah, I'd be like, oh,
like,
sorry, gotta go to Detroit for
yeah, like genuinely, like there's, I remember Riptide is in Ohio, and I
hmm
applied to Riptide one year, and I was like, the way this was happening was I would text my friend who lives in Ohio, and I would say like, hey, just found out I got on the commentary roster. Can I crash at your house? Like, and also, can you pick me up from the airport? Like I'm on my way. Like, like
You
that kind
have
of a
it
thing.
set.
Like that, like I, and if I'm gonna be nice to myself for a second,
Which you
like,
should always be.
yeah, thank you, thank you. No, but like if I am gonna talk my shit, like I genuinely do believe I'm at that level. Like when it comes to my commentary and with what I can offer to an event, I genuinely believe I could be doing a lot of these top eights. I genuinely believe I could be doing a lot of commentary at majors. I think I'm at the level that I deserve my, not deserve, that sounds wrong. I'm at that level where you
You
put me
should
in
get
there
your
and I am
flowers.
going to, yeah, like I'm going to impress people. I am going to meet the challenge, and I think I could meet and exceed those challenges. That for me is okay, you know what? Then you got to keep working at it until it happens. And that's where I'm at, like I'm still waiting on that next really big opportunity.
hmm
But I think you know, like I said, I don't I stopped trying to have a backup plan. I decided that this is what I was going to chase with my whole
Yeah.
life, and like there's always that chance that in a few years, it's not going to go the way I want and I'll have to do something else, but I I just genuinely believe I can. I
You have
feel
that
like,
cushion right now. Might as well, right?
yeah, exactly, right? I feel like I'm capable. I feel like it's well within my power, and I feel like, you know, give me a bit of time, and like I'll impress people. I think I've impressed even myself with how far I've come, and I think I still got a long way to go.
That's awesome. That kind of reminds me. There's a podcast I listen to all the time called This Is Rad, and the one of the hosts for This Is Rad, his name's Kyle. Turns out we're also in the same punk scene in the mid 2000s, which is kind of funny how that happened. But he had a couple of months ago this guy who um threw a bunch of shows like in the LA area, a bunch of like punk shows and stuff. So if in about 2000 to about 2011 ish, if you were at a punk show and like going towards like LA or close to Pomona, chances are he was one of the folks who got in touch with somebody to bring in bands, right? And he was like that big figurehead that no one knew about, right? And he was saying that like, yeah, it was great. I love that so many people loved my stuff and it's great, it's awesome. But I'm now in my 50s and punk rock didn't pay the bills, so now I got to work a regular job.
Yep, it happens to all of us, man.
It's like,
Shout out to PhD's nuts, now just being D's. He's got a doctorate. He's doing it. He's like that. I know so many people in Melee and FGC that obviously they didn't, like a lot of them, they never planned to make competing their entire career. They do it for fun, and then eventually they're like, yeah, like I got a job, I got settled up somewhere, like I gotta, like I got my future ahead of me, but I'm still gonna keep competing as much as I can, still
yeah.
dedicate to the scene and all that.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because like there is a large enough chunk of Smash, FGC, and all of our smaller scenes, I want to say, because like FPS is our whole separate problem, whole separate thing. But like we're at this turning point where I've seen like posts and retweets of like people saying, "Hey gang, I put in 10, 15, 20 years into being TO, being this behind the scenes, and like as much of the time as I've done this, I don't know how much more time I can dedicate with, you know, a full-time a regular person life existence getting in the way. And, you know, sometimes life does get in the way of life. And for those that can still take that journey, a lot of people root for those kinds of folks. And if you have to constantly consider your journey right now, the way I see and think about it is like, you might not going to be, you're probably not going to be able to have that post for another couple of, at least maybe a decade, considering you know, you're moving up in your commentary, you're leveling up as a TO. Next thing you know, you're going to throw a major and you didn't realize you were going to, which
Well, funny you mentioned that. I can't say anything yet, but I've been having conversations about this with some people, and you know,
ooh, ooh,
I don't want to say anything too much, too promising, but
too soon.
California, Southern California has been missing an FGC major for quite some time, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, somebody's got to get their big girl gloves on and go out there and start, you know, putting things together. So, you know, it's
Laying down the bricks so that
you
pouring the
know,
foundations.
if their name happens to be Dr. No, if their name happens to be, you know, Joe Schmo and so, you know, it doesn't matter who it is, but somebody's
Yeah,
gonna do it.
somebody's gonna do it. I mean, you could also just say here, like Jerry leaked Wave Dash at the beginning of the year before anyone said anything.
It, yeah, it's actually funny. I actually don't know if I'm allowed to say this. I probably am. It's been 2 years. At the Arcadian before Wave Dash 2022, he
Mm-hmm.
goes, "Hey, like, there's gonna be an announcement." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, what's the announcement?" He goes like, "We're gonna we're gonna do a major." I was like, "What?" It's like, "Yeah, all right, cool." And it just left. Just said nothing to me after that. Like, and I was like, "Excuse me?" And then like the trailer starts playing, and I was like, "Yo!" Like it was one of the coolest things. So, you know, and
It's
now, you know, we got you know, we did 2023. It went super, super well. Everyone seemed to have
you
a super
know,
great time.
it
So,
was
you know,
fun. It was
cheers
definitely
to
fun
it.
being there. And you know it's crazy too. Like I get extra giddy that fact that I was at Wave Dash this year. I get extra giddy because for all eternity until Google shuts down its servers, there are probably about 4 or 5 videos where Turned On for Walt mentions SoCal SoCal Major Wave Dash 2023, and I was like, hey, I was a part of that a little bit.
Yep.
So it's forever going to be put in the zeitgeist, and we'll see what happens next year, which I'm hoping there is. I mean, if they're fingers crossed.
I don't wanna say anything, you know, Jerry's a busy man, and I'm sure, you know, like, I know him, anything he's got cooking up, you know, he always wants everything to be perfect before he's willing to pull the veil back, so.
Of course, of course. He what was he said? I'm not willing to say anything unless I know it's going to happen.
Mhm.
Right.
Exactly.
One thing I do want to ask, speaking about the thing you can't talk about. um, what's like? Have you ever like thought about what would it be to run a major? Like, do you have resources? Do you have the idea by yourself? Or you think you realize like if I'm having I don't know how much you struggle with like your tournaments, but like if you're having you have to struggle with the idea of like how am I going to fit 170 people in a room that's made for only 150 people, right?
No, yeah,
Do you know those
it was actually
logistics? Or like how give me
so
that process if you think about it, if you want to
yeah.
talk about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I like so it was actually kind of funny. I got to the end of the last monthly that had, you know, close to 200 people, and I was pretty upset with how I ran it. I if I'm being objective, it ran really, really well. It ran as well as it could have. But I was personally upset because there were so many things that we had to change plans about. There were so many things that I couldn't offer as many friendly setups to players as I would
Mhm.
have liked. There was tons of issues like that, which are they intense, like breaking issues? No, but they don't offer the level that I wanted to offer people. And I was kind of upset. But then I remember I walked out of the venue. I stopped talking to like I said goodbye to everybody. I was driving home and I went, we can do better. I can do better. And immediately after that, I said, I want to run a major. Like this was my taste test. This is what it felt like, like to, you know, and I think for what we did a really good job, like between damage control and everything like that. We didn't expect this to get that big. The one before it, I think, had like close to 80 entrants, and then we like we had like 77 at the one before, and then we over doubled the amount of entrants. Part of it was I made like a trailer, I made like advertisement and things like that, and it just blew up. It just
Mhm.
like absolutely took off. And it was and there's other, like things that go into it, of course. But like that kind of a thing, like I was like, okay, like I understand like how people are responding to these things. And like when the event did get that big, I feel like we worked on the fly. And the only thing it told me is I need to run a major because I need to be able to plan this stuff out. I need to be able to like from the ground floor know that I'm putting on an absolutely absurd event, and from that, everything gets easier, at least in my mind,
Mhm.
you know, like, when you know what you're getting yourself into, it makes it easier to start, like, anticipating things. And, you know, I've been talking to Jerry, I've been looking to him for, like, a lot of guidance on, like, what goes into running a major and what goes into, like, all of that for him. And I've been meaning to like sit down and have a day to talk to him about like all that kind of a stuff. Um, but there's a lot that goes into it, but I genuinely believe I'm very capable. The the main issues that I run into with it is hard to it's hard to run this kind of a thing because a lot of it needs to be volunteers,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of logistics in terms of like getting setups in, monitors, branding, et cetera,
Certainly.
and all that kind of stuff. And I understand it's a lengthy process. I understand it will take me some time to coordinate and get all of this stuff together, but that project excites me. That idea excites me. And, you know, like I said, I'm always somebody who's hunting for bigger and better and always looking to, like outdo myself. If, you know, me outdoing myself is putting on a regional first and then doing a major, sure. It's still an upward goal, but I'm still gonna
Yeah.
chase it. I'm still gonna keep doing what I can to put the best events in Southern California on. And I don't know. I'll always keep chasing it. And yeah, maybe there is something daunting, but I'm well and more excited about the opportunity than I am, like, afraid of it.
What's next thing you know here there's this theory with horror that like the anticipation will always be more terrifying than what actually is there. And
Mhm.
like I think that's what it's going to be. You're going to
Oh,
build to
yeah.
it, and like in the middle of it, it's going to be terrifying, and by the time it's all done, you're mentally exhausted from everything. But hey, it was definitely a lot scarier until it actually started happening.
Yep. Yep. That is always how it goes. It's like, and I even get that when I'm, like, at events where I'm just like, "Okay," I'm starting to get nervous, like, let's mosey, like, let's ramble, but, once you get going, it's never as bad as that, like, anxiety wave would have you believe.
Yep, 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 yep. um, I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for taking your time and having this conversation with me. I'm realizing what time it is, and I can't be unfair to my fiance because I'm getting hungry, so I'm assuming she is as well.
Seems fair.
So I want to thank you so much for your time. I want to thank you for being a part of this, telling me your story. I love the fact that we got to have this conversation. Kind of bummed I didn't get to talk to you while we were both at Wave Dash, but hey, you know what? Whatever. We got to do this, and I think that's pretty cool too.
Yeah, no, this was super fun. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And I end this the same way every time. And shout outs to Oates for doing this the very first time I had a live conversation like this. I like doing this now, and this is how it's going to be going forward. We're going to do 10 questions. All right. You give me 10 questions about whatever it has to be. Whatever you think about, can be gaming related, can be not, can be whatever kind of it could be nonsense, it can be dumb, whatever it wants to be. You do that. You ask me 10 questions and I'll ask you 10 questions. And that's how we'll actually wrap this up for the night. Does that sound fun?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Do you want to ask first? Or do you want me to ask first?
I will ask first.
Okay.
So who was your first main in any fighting game? Melee, Smash, anything?
I think the first time I remember, if I really want to be if I want to be super technical about it, I remember playing MVC2 on PS2 when me and my brother had no idea what the hell we were doing. And the team was the cheapest team of for scrubs, which was Cable, Ryu, and Cyclops.
Nice.
That was the scrubbiest team you could have because we didn't know what anything was going on. We didn't know any better. So that was probably, I guess that technically, if you want to look at it, that was that. But if we want to look at actual, my actual mains, my actual real mains in Ultimate are Bowser Min Min. I realized I learned how to actually understand neutral and play games by playing Bowser and Min Min, which is kind of funny because when you play Min Min, you just start off in advantage and there's no neutral. It's just all advantage until you're in disadvantage. Fair enough. And also kind of now I think about the same thing for Bowser. So those are my name. Those are I want to say those are my real mains. And for Melee, it's actually also Puff, even though I really wanted to learn to play with Marth. So
what was your first tag? First tournament you ever went to, first time somebody asked you what your tag was. What did you respond with?
Funny enough, it's actually my punk name, Straight Edge, just Straight Edge Jesse. Right. Okay. So that's a holdover from that era. And funny side story, Jerry didn't remember me when I first reached out to him if he wanted to have a chat like this. And then it wasn't until oh shit, that's what they called you, Straight Edge. It's all coming back to me now. So that's my tag, and that's where that's what a lot of people knew me back then, and that's what people know me. That's what a lot of people in the Ultimate scene know me as now. That the people that do know me.
What was the first show you ever went to? First band you ever saw in concert?
If we're talking about any show ever, it was Slipknot, Obituary, and Shadows Fall. I went with my cousin and his friend. If we're talking a local show, it was probably who was on that bill. It was definitely Blasphemy Squad. It was a local punk show, so it was Blasphemy Squad. Unit 21, Homesick Abortions was probably there as well. And oh god, who else was probably there? Was Los Podridos there? No, they weren't there. Yeah, those three, those were definitely, if we're talking about smaller shows, it was definitely that one. But my first actual concert experience live was Slipknot, Obituary, and Shadows Fall.
Okay. Favorite recent show you've been to?
Oh,
Past, like, I would say, like, either this year or last year.
I'm gonna say this. It's probably just gonna be the last one I went to, which like for me, because of the shitty like scheduling I've had to go through, was like 12 years ago. It was at the House of Blues. It was headlined by this band called Viernes Trece. They're like a ska band out here, one of the Latin ska core bands, and Gambler's Mark, which was like a psychobilly band from the area. Yeah, and that was like, you know, 12, 13 years ago. I wish I could have gone. I wish I could go to more, but like I'm just so tired of everything and capitalism, like we were talking about as soon as we.
Ain't it a bitch?
Exactly. All right.
Um, who was your first rival in the FGC
I don't really have
or in
any.
competition?
I don't have any just because of the fact that like for me, my experience in the FGC is not even that of competition. It's going to events and talking to people and recording them live and like doing like quick like micro interviews. So it's not really anybody. What's the phrase that like people take out of context? I have no enemies.
Enemies. That's fair. Fair. It's a peaceful life.
Yeah.
Have you ever broken edge?
No.
Really?
I mean, does like the fact that I had to go to church count and I had to take the
No.
then
No, I'd say no.
then eh.
Are you vegan or no? I guess that's
No. Oh,
technically not a question, but
my brother says that he's my rival. So yeah.
that's a good one to have.
No, I'm not a vegan, but I was vegetarian for a while, for a long time. And no, Larry, that was not at the Queen Mary. That was at the House of Blues.
Have you ever performed live music before? Like, have you ever been on stage with any like house shows or anything like that?
Yes, I have. The last time it was at the Whiskey, and I was at the same show as. Do you remember that metalcore band Carnifex?
It sounds very familiar.
I
think I know them.
They have that one song, like the tag right before the drop is "Lie to my face," like "Lie to my face."
Oh yeah.
So them, and like the tagline right before it goes, "What the fuck?" that was Carnifex. That was the last time I performed light on stage. It was a long time ago. This is like 20. No, that wasn't even 2010. That was like an 09.
If you had to give somebody who doesn't listen to hardcore punk a band to listen to, who are you sending them to first?
It depends on the person, because if it's a certain demographic, I'm gonna give them Suicidal Tendencies, because where I grew up, there's a lot of gangs, so I can go with that. I can go at them with that angle, the gang angle. So it's probably Suicidal, but like, I think if it's someone who's a little bit more on the normie side of like a lot of things, I'd probably do 7 Seconds, just because, straight edge hardcore is always like a good like messaging to get to people, where it's not as offensive. But yeah, so it's either, depending on the demographic, it's either going to be Suicidal or 7 Seconds.
Okay. And trying to think of another good one. What's this? Let's date the video because it'll be funny.
Okay.
What's a song that you've had on repeat recently?
A song that I've had on repeat recently.
Yeah.
It's funny. Um, it's really been a lot of yeah. Yeah, it is. So Caifan, there's this band from Mexico. You've probably seen their shirts all around called Caifanes. And it's probably the song Afuera. Yeah. Oh, and also the Venga Boys. Boom, boom, boom. those two songs have been like playing a lot in my head too, a lot recently. Either that or the Toots and the Maytals cover of "Let Me Down" from Radiohead.
I love me some Toots and the Maytals.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Is that 9? Is that 9 or 10? I think that's 9.
I thought that was 10, but
all right. Let's do one
I
more.
thought that was 10. But yeah, just one more for the fun of it.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite non-punk or metal band or artist?
And I'm assuming you also mean like ska and psychobilly,
Yeah,
just so that we can like that.
Like outside of your main genres, like
Probably
somebody that
probably there's this band called Los Originales de San Juan, and they play Mexican regional music. And like, no, I'm not a Swiftie. Shut up.
We don't know that.
I know a lot about Taylor Swift, but I don't listen to her music. Do you know that one content creator, Cutie Cinderella?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she's on Fear and all the time, and they bring up a lot of Taylor Swift stuff. So I've learned all that stuff through that. But we're talking like action music that I actually listen to. It's probably Los Originales de San Juan, who play a bunch of like Mexican regional music, especially because they're from a part of Mexico that my mom is from, Michoacan. Yeah. Yeah. So if you ever want to hear music about gun violence, drug running, heartache that your father is an alcoholic, and one day you have so much love for your son that you hope that of the thousands of times you've held them in your hands, they repay you by the favor of carrying your casket to their grave. And you understand Spanish, that would be the band you'd want to listen to.
Okay. I like that.
There you go. Los Originales de San Juan. All right. I'm gonna see how bonkers and weird and out of the way I can get with this. I like having fun with these ones. Okay. Actually, this would be a great question for a queer person. What is ostensibly queer, but it's for the straights? Name one thing that's
for the streets. Do you mean like for everybody? But like
no, like a good example I heard one say was Ellen DeGeneres. Like it's ostensibly queer, but that's for the straights.
Oh, I'm so bad at these ones. I will say, and I'm not happy about it, certain gay clubs. Certain gay clubs just eventually just get really straight, and like they're not nearly as fun to go to after that point. It happens all the time. I don't understand why. I've gone to a few, and every now and again I'll go to one and go, y'all lost me. You had me and you lost me.
You had me the first half. Do you want to call one out that you can remember?
No.
You'd rather not?
No, I don't. I genuinely don't remember the name. It was like a year. It was. Oh no, I guess it was this year. It was earlier this year. I went to, and it was one of those that I was like looking around, and I'm like, yeah,
not really.
Like no. One thing, just funny enough, because it is the inverse. It is not marketed towards the queers, but it is.
Mm-hmm.
Goth clubs. Easily. I went to a goth club
Why do you say
on
that?
Monday.
It's so
Because here's the thing, right?
it's
It is not inherently queer to go to a goth club, but if you're not and you're going, like,
what are you
you should
doing?
you should have some talks, you know? Like, or maybe you're a good ally, but like you should talk to you should have that
Have
inner
some internal
monologue a bit.
conversations.
Yeah.
Have some internal conversations with that.
Mhm.
All right. Okay. Ooh. Let's talk a gaming specific one. Do you think all buttons or box, rectangle, however you want to call them, do you think they're cheating for either Smash or traditional fighters?
Uh, I genuinely so for traditional FGC, it's game dependent. Everyone will tell you that pad is mostly better for Tekken. Most Tekken pros are pads. Not a lot of people are stick players. Are like levered players. And I kind of think hitbox makes some things a little bit easier. Your ability to walk forward and then switch back is just faster. It is just objectively faster.
Mhm.
Um, for melee, I kind of am in camp that the box is a little cheating. Um, I will say this. I don't believe in banning it until we find a better solution because I don't want people to not be able to play the game. But at the same time, the box is just kind of better. The things you can do on it are like because and this gets into a long conversation, but I think one of the important things to recognize about melee is that like there is bullshit difficulty in terms of inputs. When we start introducing new controllers, we are messing with that ecosystem. And if we don't have conversations about like, is this too good ever, then you know, we'll just controllers will get crazier or we'll do dumber things with them. And I think the box is already stronger than a GameCube controller.
Mhm.
Um and more consistent across all like boxes you get, as opposed to across all GameCube controllers you get. So I do think the box is kind of cheating. I don't think it's cheating enough that I would say you don't deserve to compete, but I would say like you should be realistic. It's better than a controller. Like, come on. Like
I mean, this is a whole separate conversation, but like, if we look at like the top 100, there's what, maybe 7 total, and the highest
sure,
ranking is like 28. I think Pipsqueak is.
sure. But Melee is like one of the most rewarding legacy games for you to be playing. I mean, yeah, there's only so many in the top 100. Yeah, there's only so many people in the top 100 that haven't been playing this game for a minimum of 10 years,
True.
right? Like like you like in terms of like establishment, the box is fighting an uphill battle, but I think the fact that it's making a splash at all is worth mentioning in a game that like if you had never played Melee before and you said, I want to get into competitive Melee, you'll probably spend at least a year before you ever go 1 and 2 in bracket as opposed to
Yeah.
just 0 and 2, right?
True.
Legacy strength is intense in Melee.
Yeah. I mean, at the same time, though, despite the fact how prohibitively expensive GameCube controllers are, it's still a lot better than getting, any kind of rectangle whatsoever. Unless you're going to be, shout out to CFan Customs, who's going to send one to me, a shoebox. He's going to send me a shoebox.
That's tight.
Yeah, I just ordered it today. If we're going to timestamp it, I ordered one for myself and for my brother.
There I won't get too far off topic, but there's that great picture that floated around of a Potemkin controller that was a pizza box, and he had like backwards Mega Fist, forward Mega Fist, and like a series of buttons that he could just swipe his finger across and would press all of the inputs in order.
Yep.
And that got circulated around for a while, but But yeah, no.
Yeah. All right, all right. Um, who was the first? Who was the first band that you saw that like? Actually, no, that's not the question I want to ask. What was the first band you saw in person and realized, I think I'm a fan of this band, even though you've never seen them before?
So ooh. Um I I want to give two answers to this one.
Go ahead, cheat. I
Um
don't care.
one of them was like one really established band, Coheed and Cambria.
Oh, okay.
Um my cousin before he passed away was really into Coheed and Cambria. He fucking loved that band and I never really listened to him a lot. Not because I didn't want to, just because I didn't. And and then my cousins were like, "Oh, hey, they're going on tour. You should come with." So I started listening to them maybe like 2 days before the show. And I was like, "Yeah, they're pretty good." And then when I saw them live, I was like, "No, these guys fucking rule." Like Claudio Sanchez, the lead singer, is an absolute monster on stage. He's just an animal. He's all over the place. Like he's super fun to watch. But band I had never heard anything about, this local band. I don't even think they're still playing because we haven't heard from Gabby in a while. Gabby Hansel and the Beautiful Nightmare. They are a local band. They're only on SoundCloud, I believe, and like Bandcamp. They are so good. She is one of the most insane artists. She has a super cool story of she was in a band, she came out as trans, she got kicked out of that band, started her own band, fucking started killing it and made like 8 times better music and like fronts that band, plays guitar in another band, or plays drums in another band, like is just like this fucking kick-ass musician. Love, like absolutely adore her. And like I remember like the first time I saw them, I was like, no, these guys fucking rule. Like I was like, this is like one of the best bands I've ever like I've seen at this venue. And I love them. If I ever see that they're, playing a show again, I'll drive wherever the hell they're playing because they fucking rule. I fell in love with that band from day
Worth.
one.
All right. Let's meld the two topics together. Music and Smash FGC. You're in charge of the musical acts for the next DreamHack San Diego. All right. Which four artists are going to share the stage as Melee Grand Finals is going to happen?
Man. 4 artists that are gonna like play like if I was gonna like put like a lineup together.
Yes, they will. They're going to be playing at DreamHack. I don't know if that's going to influence, who you're going to bring on or we would want to. But this is the context. You're in charge of it. You're in charge of the music for DreamHack, and I said you get 4 artists. Who's performing? So
I'm gonna say this now. I'm gonna say this lineup, and then I'm not going to Melee, and I am going to be at this show the entire time from start to finish. I want you to know I love you, Melee. My favorite game. Love you, Melee. Don't get it twisted. Absolutely not watching Melee to miss out on this show.
What, losers run Mango on Mother's Day? Doesn't matter.
Look, I love Mango. I'm like a 6-year sub, man. I'm not doing it. I think it, we talked a lot about like the parallels of grassroots and everything. I think a folk punk lineup would be fucking kick ass to have at like a Melee event.
So like Andrew Jackson Jihad or something.
I was going to say AJJ, Pigeon Pit, Ramshackle Glory, and if
the Spike is Pipe Bomb?
Apes of the State.
Okay.
I'm gonna go Apes.
All right.
I would say that or Defiance, Ohio. But I think I'm lining all of them up. I like that. I'm having that is like the greatest show of all time. Like for me, like I'm just like I'm gonna go over there. I'm gonna have a fucking outstanding time. I saw AJJ 2 years ago. Fucking one of the greatest shows I've ever been to in my life. They were super fucking awesome. And I think folk punk would be a great side by side to Melee. In terms of the grassroots nature of their music.
Yep.
Um, it would be a juxtaposition a little bit, but also I would imagine most funk punk bands are more comfortable around a CRT than they are around a bunch of like high end plasma monitors and everything like that.
I I think I would agree.
Yeah,
Definitely
yeah.
would agree. All right. Ooh, okay. Going back to controllers. What's one what's one case or material uh of a controller that you've seen that like has been like your favorite so far? Like me personally, my favorite was someone who got an old Xbox 360 and turned that into a fight stick.
I I've seen some pretty funny ones. A dude at my local has a custom all wooden one.
Mm,
That is pretty cool. And he made it himself, which I thought was really neat. I kind of like the craftsmanship that goes into like, yeah, I made my own controller. Um, Honestly, I am not super huge on materials. I like when people sticker bomb it or put cool
mm.
prints in and stuff like that. Like I'm currently working on sticker bombing my stick, which I can show you because I have it here.
Ooh,
Um,
show us.
I can show you, and I love like stickers and everything. So I will show the camera. I
All
have
right.
Ken. This was like a cute art piece from my
Yeah.
girlfriend. I got a Gorilla Biscuit sticker on here. I
Nice.
got some FF14 stickers. I got Bridget.
Yep.
And I plan to put like a ton more, but I love
Hmm.
when people sticker bomb their stuff. I love just like yeah, show me like just a bunch of shit you love. Throw that on your fight stick. That
Yeah,
always makes me really happy.
that's pretty cool. In case you're wondering, my favorite was the crab box.
Oh
Someone
yeah, I did see that.
the they gave it.
That's good, but it's so much dedication for the joke that it's like it loops back around into being funny again, where you're like, "Damn, how long did this take you?"
I think it was fully functional too.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely the crab box is probably my favorite of
Mhm.
that one. All right. Um. Ooh. Okay. If Evo said, "Hey, Doctor No, we want you to decide for us. We can't figure it out. I don't know. We can't decide. Which of these two Smash games are we going to have for main stage just after Street Fighter 6 for Evo 2024? We can't decide. And it's all down to you. What are we playing? Are we playing HDR or Smash 64 Remix for grand finals? Or
64 remix kind of goes hard though. I would probably say HDR, but man, 64 remix kind of goes hard. Like I probably say HDR. Before both of those, I'd say Brawl Minus, but
Yeah.
that wasn't part of the question.
So we're closing out. We're gonna close out Evo with HDR. All right, cool.
Yeah, no. Okay, but tell me you wouldn't love to see Ganondorf press neutral B and shoot out a sun in Brawl Minus as like in an Evo stadium. Like
Honestly, I want to see the piano.
no, that's
I want to
fair.
see
That is fair.
piano. I want to see piano versus Conquer.
Needs to be done. Somebody get on that.
My brother says he wants to see PM. I'm like, all right, but I think 64 if 64 remix and HDR is the one. All right, so it's going to be HDR. All right, thanks, Doctor No. I'll let Evo know.
Yeah. Yeah. No problem. No problem.
Or at least I'll do it at Evo Day. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Ooh. Was Doctor No your first tag? And did it come from the band or the movie?
It came from the movie actually. No
Okay.
was not my first tag. My first tag was Milkman. And then I found out, one, I'm not a man, and two, there's way better milkman tag holders out there in multiple different games. I cannot compete with these motherfuckers. So, like, I was like, all right, you know what? Fair. I'm gonna concede on that one. Uh, and it's so funny story. Um, my brother was really into James Bond movies when I was growing up.
Mhm.
My older brother loves James Bond movies, so I knew who Doctor No was. And then there was an artist named Data Crash, who he makes like just like these like lo-fi beat kind of things. Really, really interesting stuff. And he had a song called Doctor No that I was listening to one day. And I was like, I think I was just like practicing tech skill in my room. And I was like that song came on, and I was like, this is like kind of hidden. And I saw Doctor No, and I was like, yeah, that kind of works because DRNO, it's 4 characters, so it fits in like the melee, like little like
Yeah.
tag thing. Doctor No kind of like flows well enough, so I feel like it's easy to remember. And I love being a villain. I'll never forget. I got money matched once, and when I won, shout out to Green Ninja if you're out there. Hold that dog. Like he after I won, he said, "You're a fucking villain," and I had never felt more gratified by my own play than in that moment when somebody called me a fucking villain. And I kind of like it. Like it's got everything that I like about this. So Doctor No came into being in like 2016. No, gosh, it must have been 2015, 2016. Junior to senior year of high school. Um, and like I just I carried it ever since. I feel like the tag works for me. I'm, more than happy with it.
It's a really good one. It's a really good
Thank
one.
you, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Ooh, let's see. Question 7. I'm running low on question space now. Oh God. Okay. What's your favorite? What's your favorite food place that doesn't exist anymore?
Oh God. Curry House. I can't even eat it anymore. But Curry House in Puente Hills, the best Japanese curry you will ever have in your life. You would walk in there. It was like dirt cheap, and it was just amazing. It was just hearty. You could walk in at literally any time, no matter how busy they were. I
Mm-hmm.
felt like they would get your food out in roughly the same amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I would eat, and I would just I was just like, oh my god, this is like at peace in life. They closed without telling anybody. Like what
Damn.
I heard, I got a text from my friend Gabe who lives closer to there. He was going there to like pick up dinner, and he goes, yeah, I like drove up and there was a bunch of staff outside trying to figure out what was going on. And I was like, excuse me? And he's like, yeah, apparently they're closed, and they never came back. Shout out to Curry House.
That's
You know,
so sad.
like rest up. I hope you're doing well. If you've opened a new restaurant somewhere in the world, please let me know. Like if y'all went undercover for a while, I get it. I'll keep that on the low, but just please for me, for my
If you had
family.
to, if you had to operate in the back of a bathhouse and that's the only way you could continue, let me know.
Yeah, no, it's the same thing as going to a house show, right? If I have to walk into somebody's backyard for some good curry, I'll do it. I'll go.
Oh God, you know what that reminds me? As soon as you said that, there was this house on this one street, like close to where my parents lived, and they ran an illegal restaurant out of their front yard. So their front yard's huge and gated off, but it's like on a highway where there's no sidewalk. So, and it was also like one of these types of properties where like the property itself is actually super huge because the depth of it is it goes real deep into the yard. The house is a fairly decent size and also a decent sized backyard because the backyard is to the freeway. So they put a lot of very specific vegetation in the front so you can kind of barely see what's in the front yard.
Yeah.
and you'd always see like this giant like gazebo tent on the weekends, but only on the weekends. And like all of a sudden, Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays, the empty lot next to it that was just like a plot of land that technically had a dirt driveway, all of a sudden that area got filled for like hours and hours and hours on end.
Tons of cars that were all just empty
just for some reason, only on Saturdays and Sundays. And like, I think these people throw some fucking bangers and ragers because it's every weekend.
And you know that food would fucking smash.
Oh,
you know that food had to like be an otherworldly type of good.
It also reminds me of like there's this so in the valley, you have a handful of food places you'll go to, right? And it's just that's your spot. When me and my fiance moved up north, we went out of our way. We're gonna drive an hour and a half to go down back to the valley to get the food that we wanted to have. And we do not accept any substitutes. At least I don't want to. And like the first time we were like, wait a minute, this is worth it, was I think we went down to this place called Rosie's Tamales, and we got their tamales and we brought it up. And the first time we discovered that I already had Rosie's Tamales was because down the street from where my parents live, there's a person who sold tamales out of the trunk of their truck. Right? So it's like, wait a minute. A random Mexican lady selling tamales and stuff out of the back of her van. You know what? You know it's legit. You know you can trust it.
Yeah.
So
that is some shit because like people from like richer areas or from like other places like
they don't understand.
You'd be like, that could be dirty. No, you don't understand. That woman has never put gloves on in her life except to clean her bathrooms with bleach every Saturday night. Aside from that, you can trust that woman with your life.
Exactly. So the funny part was like me and my fiance were she was craving tamales and so was I. It's like fuck, but we don't know where to get any. They're only here on Saturdays and Sundays, and they're not down the street from the house. What are we gonna do? We looked at the one place, and I was like, all right, fine, let's go. We went over there. I was like, I don't know. I was ready for disappointment. And then the teenage girl, who I'm assuming was their daughter, said, oh, hey, how's it going, gang? What do you want? And that's what we did. It's like, okay, we could trust this place.
Yeah, no, they're on the up and up. We know.
They're legit on two fronts.
That's awesome.
All right. So that curry place, that's your favorite. All right. Yeah. I'm gonna steal this one from another podcast I love listening to. Shout outs to Goods from the Woods podcast. Shout outs to them. They have a great question when they ask guests. What's a local legend from your hometown? And I don't mean like, oh, like technically like from San Fernando Valley, George Lopez is considered like a local legend, right? Because that's where he grew up. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about like an actual celebrity. I'm talking about like, hey, if you're from this hometown, you know this guy and you've seen him.
Who? That's a good question. I don't know if this counts, but I was one city over from Whittier, and Afromu, who is a competitive League of Legends player. I don't know if he's still competing, but he was like in the LCS for a good few years. He was from Whittier. I don't know if that counts. But local, I'm trying to think of any local legends that like are not like famous, but they like could be or should be. We have a lot. I'll be honest. My local has a lot of players that have gotten sponsors since they've started attending my local and like started getting bigger waves. And those are all my local legends, right? Those are the people I care about. Like I'm praying on their success.
That's actually pretty cool. I was gonna say like a funny like local legend. I think about all the time. And like this is I don't know who this guy is, but I see him all the time. He he has a mobility scooter, but like he put a shell around it so that it looks like he's riding in a Pope mobile.
Kind of sick. I like that.
Oh my god. Okay. Let's see. This is gonna be my second to last question. Ooh, okay. I think this is gonna be one of my staple questions because I've used it twice already. You get to go to any tournament wherever you want. This is you get all expense paid trip to this tournament, but it's actually a hyper dangerous. Probably you shouldn't go to their tournament of any kind. What country would that be, or what place would it be?
It's not like so like we are just saying like this would be dangerous to go
This
to,
would be
not already
dangerous.
dangerous.
Not already
Uh,
dangerous. I'm not talking about like, oh, you're gonna go to a scary part of Japan. You're gonna go to a spooky part of Mexico. Nah, we're talking about like uh it's on the no-fly list for Americans to go to type of space.
um, I mean, I'd go to anything. I don't know. I can't think of like anything that I wouldn't like go to. I mean, obviously, like there's some safety involved, but if I knew that like, hey, I'm gonna go with some people and like, it'll be real, like, yeah, I'll go to whatever, I'm down to clown, I am not I am kind of mind that like a lot of like I don't know. I would go like if you told me like, oh, Evo Japan is gonna be in like a really like, like bad part of Japan. I don't know if where exactly that would be, but like I'd be like, yeah, you know what, why not? I'll go. Or if you said, like, hey, Evo this year is gonna be in
Sponsored by the Medellin drug cartel.
yeah, like I'd be like, you know what? We gotta do it though. We gotta see it through. We gotta see it through.
The stories though.
Yeah. I would I'm down to clown with whatever, I'll go wherever. As long as I know somebody that like that's there and is going, like, yeah, all right, I'll go. Why not?
As long as you register with the US government that they can come and save you, you're fine.
I'm pretty open. I don't know. Life's full of adventure. You gotta have some of it.
I think the number one answer so far has been North Korea. Like that's the scariest place, and that'll be the one.
I'd go to a North Korean tournament.
I think Oates had said like, "Yo, but this young Link player though."
Oh no.
Okay. Oh, this is my last one. Oh, what can I do to make this? What can I do to make this one special? Hmm. You know what? I'm gonna get very, very personal with this last one, and I hope this is okay.
Go for it.
Um, how did you end up choosing your name?
I actually love this story. So for I knew I wasn't cisgendered for a long while. Probably I probably started realizing it in like, like I had like the first inklings of it in like middle school ish, and then, like progressively learned. I didn't learn to start letting myself ask more questions until later in life. But the first name I changed to was Aaron, Aeryn. And I was going by Aiden for a while. I wasn't quite sure, like it was I was still experimenting, still going places. Um, and then after that I got a little bit more comfortable with femininity and I started going by Valerie. Either Val or Valerie. And I didn't settle on Guinevere until I was writing up the twit longer that I was going to come out with. And I didn't even consciously think of the name Gwen until it just appeared on my screen in front of me. I was just typing and I typed out the name Guinevere, said short for Gwen, or like Gwen for short. And I remember I just like it was just there. It was just in front of me. And funny story, I was so when you're typing a twit longer,
Mhm.
and there's like the little post button, and you know when you every other like social media app or whatever, if you click on that button, usually it will say, "Are you sure you'd like to tweet this?" or something like that.
Mhm.
That one does not. I typed out the whole thing and I was staring at it for maybe an hour. And I remember I said to myself, I'm gonna click it and I'm gonna look at the confirmation and I'm gonna stare at this for a little while longer because I didn't know what was gonna happen to me. I still lived in a home that was very
Not conducive
it was
to.
yeah, I got kicked out very shortly after. But I was looking at it and I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen to me if I press this button. Like I don't. And so I pressed it and I knew and I was gonna wait for the confirmation and then it just sent. It was just out there. And I was like, oh
Well.
fuck. And I just like I remember like I was like sitting at my desk, I was looking at it and I just like pulled my hands back and I just kind of like sat there for a second. Um it was right before the Arcadian in spring 2022. Um It was and I remember, like, that was just how Gwen came to me. It was just in that very specific moment of I was typing the twit longer, explaining my feelings on things and talking about my situation and all that kind of stuff. Um, the name Gwen just hit me and, you know, a little happy ending to it all is I got absolute swaths of support from friends and from people within the scene and the people I would call family, all just absolutely like overwhelming support. Um, Raptor messaged me pretty much right off rip. Jerry messaged me right off rip. I think Georgie messaged me as well. Just said like, "Hey, you know, like if you need anything, please let me know. Like we're really happy to have you." And I like, you know, like and all this stuff. Iggy, shout out to her. I absolutely love that girl. She was a super big inspiration to me. Alex, Part Time Shuffle as well. Um, and I was met with a love and support that I feel like only the FGC can really offer the family that will love and support you in that way. Uh, and you know, it's something I would never trade for anything in the world. You know, this scene is one of the coolest, and I'm through the roof that they accepted. You know, they accepted Gwen.
Oh, that is a beautiful story.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. I didn't know if that was too personal or not to ask, but
No, no.
I'm glad we got to hear it. And for anyone that missed it, you can always point to whatever timestamp is here, and if you don't feel like recounting the whole thing, there it is, and it's immortalized on the internet forever in your actual voice. Again, super, 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 super thankful that you were here. It took your time for this. Is there anything you want to talk about or not talk about? Is there anything you want to shout out? Any social medias to follow? Anything you want to promote? Anything you want to say? Whatever. Is there someone you want to say fuck off to? I don't know. What do you
No,
have for us?
yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at underscore Dr. No underscore. I always say this, if you are a Smash person, if you want to get into the FGC, or if you're already in the FGC and you know you just want to find out about locals, you want to watch local tournaments, all that kind of stuff, please drop a follow. I'd love to help bridge that gap for you. I have bridged the gap for tons and tons of people that are like want to try out their first fighting game, all that kind of a stuff. I love talking about fighting games. Any follows are super appreciated because we trying to make it out in the scene.
Bigger number,
Try to
better
do big
person,
things.
right?
Yeah. But I run Owen Tuesdays and Fullerton Fights. You're always more than welcome to tune in. Y'all want to watch a tourney, just like watch your locals action. Always means a lot to me to have that kind of support. Um, any other shout outs? I mean, huge shout out to Reapermeister, huge shout out to Cowboy, huge shout out to anyone that that saw this on Twitter, and like all my local homies. If you guys tuned in to watch, I appreciate you. Like much love always for my hometown heroes. um but yeah, no, um I think that's just about it. My Twitter's my main social. You always find out when I'm going live with tournaments and stuff. You find out where I'm commentating next. Bless up that I get into Festival of Fights. I would love to commentate at that at the end of the year, and then look out for is sometime in November. I'm gonna be doing a charity tournament stream for my birthday. So it'll be we'll probably I still haven't settled on what charity I'm gonna end up doing, but I will be sure to follow up with everybody. Post it on Twitter when that's going on. So
All right, that's awesome. Also, do you have a place where they can watch any of your tournaments at?
yeah, at Twitch, it's at Dr. 2_no. Also YouTube at Dr. No FGC. All the VODs are on YouTube. Catch the tourneys live on Twitch. They go to YouTube a couple days later, in a little bit higher quality because Twitch kind of doesn't have the greatest quality for live streaming always.
Yeah.
But we upload, like in high quality. I do VOD review and stuff upon request. I haven't been able to do at-home streams as much just because I'm currently fucking broke and I have to get a new catalytic converter for my car that I cannot afford. So any way that y'all support, it genuinely means the world to me and helps me out. So but yeah, thank you again for having me. This was super fun. I loved getting to chit chat and shoot the shit for a while.
It's been super awesome. All right, I'm gonna let you go. Take care. Bye bye. Say bye. Wave as you disconnect. Bye bye.
Later, everyone. Bye-bye. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Oh, man. That was good times, gang. That was good times. Thank you for everybody who stopped by. Thank you for if you participated in the chat, if you were watching this at a later time, at a later place, a better place, a better time. This is fun. Huge shout outs to Dr. No. They are super cool person. We learned a lot, and I'm glad we got a chance to learn. For anyone else that's watching right now, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. It really warms my heart that people are willing to see this. We got another one already lined up for next month. Hopefully that goes just as well as this one did. We're going to try to see how many more we can get done before the end of the year. My hope is we can round up at least once a month again, going back to it. There was a big gap in time when we didn't get anything going because other stuff was happening, but we'll get that situated. Thank you for being here. Like, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. Share the links whenever you have a chance with all the people, because it's always good to see bigger numbers for people. And then maybe I can convince the next person that you want to see on this. Maybe it's another commentator, a different TO, a whoever. Drop a Larry Loco in there for if you're watching. All right, and with that, I'm going to let y'all go. Thank you for being here. It's been awesome. Thank you.